Breeders' Cup Saturday Part 2. Yeah, we didn't even have the ability to put it all on one episode. We had to break it up onto 2 different episodes because we had so much information for you on just the Saturday part. That's not even counting the Friday Breeders' Cup that was its own show. So between the 2 Breeders' Cup days, there's 3 episodes of That's What G Said. One of them covers all of Friday. The other one's going to cover races 1 through 8 on Saturday. We also have an interview on there with the co-founder of Old Smoke Clothing, Kurt Rossner. So you get races 1 through 8, you get races 4 through 8, all the Breeders' Cup races with a guest interview going through every race, and that's what you're going to get here on this episode as well. We're going to go Breeders' Cup Mile with Chris Larmey. We're going to go Breeders' Cup Distaff with Christina Blacker. We're going to go Breeders' Cup Turf with Andrew Champagne and Darin Zoccali. We're going to go Breeders' Cup Classic with Emily Gullikson. And we are also going to talk football on this episode. Hey, just because it's a big Breeders' Cup weekend doesn't mean I'm going to take a week off of the NFL. No way, shape, or form. Erik, ETOF21 Sports, joins me for about a 45-minute conversation going over every game for the NFL Week 9 slate. We go over the point spreads, the totals, ways we're leaning, maybe some players to use in daily fantasy or fantasy setups. So, Part 2, Breeders' Cup Saturday. Here we go. Gotta let you know, though, about Stable Duel before we get into all the Breeders' Cup stuff. Stable Duel. This is daily horse racing contest. When you download the app, the Stable Duel app from your phone, your iPad, maybe your Android or your iPhone, you get the opportunity to play in contests at different tracks basically every day of the week, multiple tracks a day, many times, different contest options for you. We're playing in contests where you're putting up an entry fee of $5, $10, $15, $20, playing against 50, 60, 100, 200, 500 different entrants, and you're winning cash prizes right back each and every day. Check out Stable Duel for those daily horse racing contests. So let me give you an example. Coming up this weekend, Thursday, at Woodbine, there's a $25 contest you can get involved in. That's an entry fee. At Golden Gate, there's a $10 entry fee. At Evangeline, there's a $5 triple up. So that means if you finish in the top 40% of that contest, you'll turn your $5 into $15. On Friday, you could play at Del Mar in a $25 contest that pays out to the top 10. They also have a Penn National contest with a $10 entry fee. On Saturday, Del Mar has a $25 entry fee that pays out top 10. They also have a Woodbine contest for Stable Duel, and it's going to give you a bonus. If you play in the $10 Woodbine in contest with the $10 entry, and then you make a wager at Woodbine, you will be eligible for a $300 bonus. For the details and the specifics, make sure to follow Stable Duel on Twitter, on social media. You can get all the specifics there. They also have an Evangeline contest, $10 entry fee on Saturday, and then on Sunday, Del Mar, $10 triple up. Turn that 10 into 40 if you're one of the top 40% there. We go straight into the Breeders' Cup races on part 2 of Breeders' Cup Saturday, and we're going to start on this episode with race number 9. It is the Breeders' Cup Mile, and that's Chris Larmey who's going to join us to talk Breeders' Cup Mile. Up next, it is the Breeders' Cup Miles. We're going to be talking about Saturday at Keeneland and race number 9. To join me is someone who, this is a long time coming. He's actually going to be the first time on That's What G Said, but someone I used to interact with week in and week out on Elite Racing Network. An excellent handicapper, very good gambler, really good contest player, a good writer, just a great ambassador for horse racing. He's a good follow on social media and has a really nice podcast out there. And what's great about my next guest, Chris Larmey, who's going to join me to talk about the Breeders' Cup Mile, is Chris, you're just a lot of fun to interact with. You are someone who you're constantly like improving your game, I think, which is what we all have to do as horse players. You're looking for new angles. It seems like you're having conversations with people and absorbing information. I always love following you and listening to you because you seem like you just got a really good head on your shoulders for this game of racing.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Gino, and back at you. I definitely enjoy talking with other people. about things, especially when they're passionate about it. And I just feel like you can learn a lot from everybody. And, that's what half the fun is, just learning and improving. And in horseplay, as a horse player, there's just so much to learn. There's always something new out there, and the game's always changing. So to me, that's the best part of it. That's what makes it challenging and fun. And in particular, talking with other people about races is just about as good as it gets,
Yeah.
breaking it down. And so I love to do that. I'm looking forward to talking about this race with you.
And you do a great job at it. We're going to get right into the Breeders' Cup Mile, which is always a fascinating race. You're going to get some really talented European horses in, and at least from a general standpoint, overall from year to year, this is a race that feels like ones that the U.S. horses can, I think, compete a little bit better with the Euros, because the U.S. horses have a little more natural speed. Sometimes for turf distance races, we're in a little bit of trouble because we don't really have as many of those and as many quality type races. But this is a fascinating race to me. We'll start with Circus Maximus in the inside. Chris, this was a horse who actually was in this race last year. He finished fourth in the Breeders' Cup Mile at Santa Anita, and he just didn't have a very good trip early on. And that's not really his running style. Circus Maximus is super talented. I just don't. What kind of a trip do you think he gets? That's what I'm worried about with him.
Well, I agree. He ran better than his running line looks in the Breeders' Cup last year, and he did seem to, handle the switch to the U.S., so that's always a plus. And in this race, to me, trips typically determine the winner, and I agree with you. The longer they go, the more edge the Euros have. This is sort of in the middle where the sprints, I think you definitely favor the U.S. horses.
Yep.
The marathons, the Euros, and the mile. It's kind of a toss-up, so it always comes down to the trips. And in particular, post position really matters in this race with a short run of the first turn, a two-turn race. And this year, unfortunately for the Americans, the Euros really got the best of it on the post draw. I mean, they drew inside for the most part, and the better U.S. horses kind of got stuck on the outside. So I'm leaning a little bit towards the Americans, and Circus Maximus is one of those. Drew the rail, gets Ryan Moore, who's really good at riding the rail in turf races. He does have some tactical speed. You're always worried about the Euros getting away from the gate, so I think the break will be important for him. But if he can break alertly, not get shuffled back too far, and save some ground and be in a stalking position, I think he's a contender. His form kind of is off, although his last race was on some really bad ground, so I think you can forgive that. The 1-2 back was a little disappointing, but he gets Lasix in here, and he might be the kind of horse that can benefit from that. He almost looks like he might be a horse that might have some bleeding issues, and maybe that might be what happened as he tailed off. But on his best, with the right trip, he's not impossible at all.
Yeah, and he wants to be, like I said, he wants to be closer than he was in that Breeders' Cup race last year, because he actually has more speed in a lot of his races in Europe, which he won't end up being on the lead here with this kind of speed. It'll probably be more stalking, and that's the key, like you said. As long as he's able to settle and he doesn't get caught in an in-between where he's trying to chase too quick, or he's trying to get caught up with the pace, he can just settle from the inside. I think the inside draw is a really nice draw for him, as you mentioned, as we move from Circus Maximus to Kamiko. I would imagine this one would probably get bet even a little from that 6-1 morning line. I thought Kamiko looked really, really good coming into this one, Chris. If you just go back and look at the last couple races of his, so his last 3 races at a mile, you have a Grade 2 win, a troubled fourth, and a Group 2 win, a troubled fourth, and a Group 1 win. And in that troubled fourth, when he was behind Circus Maximus and Siskin that day, he broke inside, but he settled. He was tucked in behind horses, and it was just a brutal trip. Absolutely nowhere to go throughout. I think this is the trip that he wants. You mentioned the Euros drawn well. I like him quite a bit in this spot.
Yeah, I concur with everything you said. Kamiko to me is the pick. He's definitely the most likely winner. I don't think you'll get a big price, but anything close to that 6-1 seems like pretty good value. He did draw well. And like you said, a mile is his trip. I mean, he's been lights out His only time he's lost at a mile this year was, like you said, with that brutal trip against good horses, and he still, didn't disgrace himself. And, they took a shot in the Epsom Derby, stretching him out. I get that. It's kind of like people with the Derby here in the U.S. He didn't disgrace himself again there, but it's clearly too far for him. Where I was a little surprised is when they stretched him out again 2 races back against top horses, Magical and Gaiath. And, again, that was longer than his trip against really good horses. So now he cuts back, or he cut it back to a mile, and he showed, what he can do in his last race. Should get a good trip in here. He's not going to be way up front, but he's not a slow plotter type. So he should get a good trip, and a little bit of racing luck will have to come in play late. But to me, he's the one to beat in here. And 6-1 is value. Like you said, though, he's likely to get bet down a bit from that. But I see him as the most likely winner.
And as long as he gets hit at 7-2 and then can float back up to 5-1, that's fine by me. I hope it's not a situation where everybody looks and goes, okay, and then the first click he's 2-1 and then has a tough time floating back up. Hopefully we can still get something, as you mentioned, closer to that 6, because he looks very, very good in here. As you move to Lope y Fernandez, hey, I mean, if you're just talking on pure connections, you got Aidan O'Brien and you got Dettori. You're not in bad hands here. I can't get as excited about him as I can for some of the other Euros. He's been sprinting more as of late and will now try to stretch that out to a mile. And so I have a tough time with the trip. Feels like he's a little overmatched, and, the shipping, all that stuff together. I can't really get too excited about him.
Yeah, I agree. He does have some upside. He does get a good post and a good rider, but O'Brien hasn't got a very good record.
Not as of late, no.
No. And he's not had a great year either. And I'm just not too high on his horses in general. And this one seems more like an afterthought than a prime contender. So I'm not real high. It won't be on any of my tickets in the Breeders' Cup.
We move to a horse who, in the 4, Siskin, I think is a little bit of a player in here. So if you look at the September 6th race most recently, settled third while the top 2 just ran off and was 7 lengths behind, and got up to third, but was just sort of outrun after that slow start. And it's one of those weird races when horses run off. It's kind of hard to gauge. The form prior to that, you could really, find a couple races in a row that were good. That race at the Carava in June was really solid. Came right back with a good third, even with some trouble on July the 29th behind Circus Maximus. I could make a case here for Siskin. I think there are some things to like, and if you're getting over 10-1, to me that seems pretty fair.
Yeah, I don't see him beating Kamiko, but I do think he's a contender. It's interesting. Supposedly, they've been training him around a left-handed turn in his gallops and stuff. So even though he hasn't raced left-handed, they've definitely been thinking Breeders' Cup and trying to plan ahead for the likely trip that he get. And he did draw a pretty good post. Supposedly, he had some real gait issues before that last race. I saw the race, but I didn't see what happened beforehand. But he acted up and he broke slow. And supposedly he's done that a couple times when he's traveled, so that's something to look for, I think, is if, watch him pre-race. You can't necessarily wait until they open the gates, but, if he's looking really
anxious and I agree. And that's why I wouldn't want to – he's one that I would want still around 10-1, because I think at least or so, because there's some questions there. Like he's been kind of his own worst enemy in some spots. Super capable with the top effort, with one of his best, but – I agree with you. He'd still be a cut below Kamiko and maybe a couple others in here, but not without a chance. Siskin, the number 4, as we move along to Digital Age for Chad Brown, who's gotten really good in his last couple starts. He beat a lot of the better Americans in the Turf Classic in a race that set up pretty well for him, but this year in particular, it doesn't feel like a lot of this horse is good. I just don't know how deep any of these American turf divisions are, especially going long. So Digital Age, he's probably one of the more live contenders of the American horses. Do you think he has a shot to win it all in here?
Well, he's the only one that got a good post, really.
Yeah.
He's improving, but I think the time to have him was the last time.
Yep.
He's a horse that tends to find trouble and he actually got the clean trip that he's been crying out for. And even that clean trip, his best effort ever, I don't think is going to win. But if he can improve off that and get a trip again in here, I think he could hit the board. I wouldn't be playing him, on top in pick fives or, to win. But of the U.S. horses, he's not without a chance, although I think it's pretty small in terms of the win.
Yeah, great point too. Depending on how you're making your wagers, right? He wouldn't really surprise me at all if he ran a good race and he was 2, 3, 4. I would be a little surprised if he was able to jump up and beat a couple of these that just seem a little bit classier than he is. We move to the number 6, Safe Voyage, who comes in pretty nice form. Safe Voyage most recently ran at Longchamp on October the 4th and was held in second, was like pretty close to the lead early on, was then behind, angled 3 wide. Took a while to get going, but he closed pretty well, and looked like he was getting to one master. And then, the September 12th race was also very solid, took back just behind the leader, so he's kind of tactical. He's not necessarily a horse who has to be a stone cold closer, which is nice, and he's not going to be as quick as some of these. He could be in a good spot.
Yeah, he does have tactical speed, and he's rock solid. He's a 7-year-old that never runs a bad race. Probably 7 furlongs looks like his wheelhouse, but he's run some good races at a mile. So with the right trip, I could see him hitting the board, and he's the type that might get overlooked a little bit in the wagering. So, if I had to choose between he and Digital Age, I'd probably go with Safe Voyage. But they're both the type that I couldn't play to win, but possibly they could hit the board with the right trip.
And I'd be more inclined to play Safe Voyage because you'll probably get double the price. You'll get some of the people that are just throwing the Chad Brown and playing the Chad Brown money. And Safe Voyage, as you said, of the Euros, he could be forgotten about. Definitely for me in the 2, 3, 4 spots, and I'll probably flop him into 1 or 2 pick 4s or pick 5s depending on how I'm approaching that. Casa Creed, to me, just. He's talented. He's got ability. He feels just like a cut below this. So you just look at his recent races. He's been defeated by Digital Age, Factor This, Holiday, Ivar, Raging Bull. He's going to have to turn the tables on all of them.
Yeah, I've played this horse a few times, and I think he has some talent, but I just don't think he's a Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Mile winner. So I think he's in a little bit over his head here. Although you could argue he's run as well as like Digital Age, but I think maybe Digital Age has more, more excuses and
a little more upside, maybe. Yeah, I agree.
But from a price standpoint, and
underneath, like what's nice too is he's pretty versatile. Like he can be close or he can pass horses. He's shown the ability. In my head, when I try to work out how everybody's trip, what kind of trip they need to get to win, I can't see him either stealing the race. I can't see him passing everyone. I could see him maybe being mid-pack and like falling into a good spot and finishing 3rd or 4th. I just don't know if he could hold off some horses with a big turn of foot. One horse who has a big turn of foot is March to the Arch. He was in the Woodbine Mile most recently. He was second behind a very, very nice mare in Starship Jubilee. March to the Arch will come running with the right type of trip. I just look at his races and I can make a case for him. I just don't know if he can beat the group like this. I like the mile for him. There are some positives. I wanted to see him win that race. I felt like that was a race, the Woodbine Mile, that, Starship Jubilee's good, but he still probably should have won that one. What do you feel about March to the Arch? I got some conflicting feelings.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty nice horse, but I don't think he's maybe a Grade 1 Canadian horse, but I don't think he's a Grade 1 U.S. Euro type horse.
It's probably a better way to put it, yeah.
But, I mean, it's hard to knock him. He does come running every time, but he'd have to get a clean trip, and he'd have to outfinish some horses I think are a little classier and a little quicker at the end. So I wouldn't say he has no chance, but he's probably not on many of my tickets unless he's a really big price, and it would be only if I'm playing like tries and supers would I be including him.
The 9-1 Master is 12-1 on the morning line. Came in from Ascot and was a good third last time out in the British Champion Sprint Stakes. Won the Prix de la Fera on October the 4th. That's sort of my problem with him. He's not a miler. And is he good enough to to stretch out, and could he win with the right type of trip? And is he classy enough to beat a group like this with, getting things his way? Sure. But this isn't his best trip. And what concerns me a little bit is this is going to be his third start in about a month with the travel. October the 4th, you come back October the 17th. Then you travel, you come back, and this is going to be November the 7th. Feels like a lot to do and then ask a horse to go a mile. Where do you stand with One Master?
Well, to me, he's a lot like Safe Passage, but
yes.
I do think he leans a little more towards the sprint than Safe Passage, and he tends to seem to like the heavier ground more than Safe Passage. So, Safe Voyage. Sorry, I messed the name up. But so those two are similar, but I would prefer Safe plus the better post. I would prefer Safe Voyage over One Master, although One Master from a jockey standpoint has a better rider than Safe Voyage. But those two are very similar types, I think. I don't see him winning either one.
Yeah, I agree. I would lean Safe Voyage over One Master too, because I feel like Safe Voyage is probably a little bit better going the mile, but a couple talented horses there nonetheless as we move from the 9 to the 10. Holiday, and with Holiday, Chris, I think it's pretty simple. They were honest about it. We tried to take the horse off the pace 2 starts back in the Bernard Baruch, and he just isn't the same. He doesn't run the same. He doesn't have the same figures. There are horses like this who are sort of one-dimensional speed types. Does that mean he can't sit off and pass horses that he's better than? No. I just don't think he can sit off and pass horses like this in a Breeders' Cup race. Could he steal a race if nobody else goes? Sure. Is he going to get that kind of trip, though? There's some other speed in here, and I think this is what you were talking about with the Americans not getting the best of the posts. We're going to have a couple of them who want to be forwardly placed, and they're going to be drawn towards the outside. It's not going to make things easy on them.
Yeah, Luis Saez probably has to send from that post and would want to anyway, and you have to figure Ferran Giroux, who's really turned into a gun-it-type rider, will gun from the outside and factor this. So those two are almost destined to make it at least an honest pace, if not a quick pace, because they have to really go early to get over before they hit that first turn. So I think that plays against Holiday. He's a nice horse, though, and he was game last time, but he did get away with an easy lead. And I don't like the fact they had this leg infection that required antibiotics and forced him to miss the last race. That's a big negative to me. He seems to be working well since then, but you kind of want everything to be going right
Absolutely.
in a race like this. And this horse, clearly the preparation hasn't gone to plan. The race shape probably isn't going to be ideal with him having factored this, breathing down his neck on the outside. So I'm kind of against Holiday in here. But, if things broke well and factor this, doesn't get out of the gate or something, and he has recovered from that leg infection, who knows? It's always nice in a big field to be near the front because you avoid all that trouble. But I'd have a hard time playing him in this race.
Yeah, me too. If I had some races where I'd seen him be able to sit just a little bit, and then I could think, okay, he'll let Factor this maybe go and just track behind him. Maybe he could get the jump, but he really does not seem like he wants to stalk and pounce and then go by. He just wants to be on the front end. If there were no Factor this in here, I would give him a big opportunity. He would be a horse I would use in pick 4s and pick 5s. I'm with you. I can't project either one of them getting a loose lead. Even with the horse like Ivar right next door, who I thought Joe Talamo did an incredible job. It was a great, great ride in the Shadwell Turf Mile because he would have been parked about 5 wide. He broke well from the outside post, and Ivar would have been parked maybe 5 wide going into the turn. Instead of that, Joe said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take this horse back. And he took the horse back. He got over to the 2 path, and he wasn't worried. He didn't have to worry about going wide. He just got this horse to settle, and he closed a ton. I think his morning line is a little bit short. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's a little bit closer too. But especially with his post, he might be kind of caught in between. Is he going to have to go and then try to secure a nice spot? Are they going to just make the decision again early and try to take way back? I'm not sure what to do here with Ivar.
Yeah, I liked him before the draw. I know he overcame the outside post last time, but that wasn't as tough a field. And, maybe he got a little bit lucky. He needed some luck. From that kind of a post. So of the U.S. horses, I definitely think he's the best. And he has upside because he was bred in South America, so he's a 4-year-old, but he's like a 4-year-old in January or February rather than the end of the year. And so, he's coming into his own. He's got talent, but he's going to have a hard time getting the trip to win this race. But he's definitely one that could win if he can work out a trip. Of the U.S. horses, a repeat of his last effort will put him right there, and he was very impressive in that last race.
Yeah, if he was 8-1, 6, like just above 6, I'd feel a little bit better, and maybe he will float up a little bit. I wouldn't be shocked if he does, and I agree with you. As far as pure talent, upside, I love the fact that he's shown multiple dimensions now. We know that he can be forwardly placed, and he showed us he can come from behind, but coming from behind against a group like this with some legitimate European horses and legitimate turn of foot, that's going to be a whole different ball game. But lightly raced with some upside, as you said, maybe he can continue to progress, and maybe he is up to the task. What do we do with Uni, last year's Breeders' Cup Mile winner, who sort of like Sister Charlie for Chad Brown, just really hasn't been the same this year. Then she came back, Uni, and was pretty good in the First Lady. Again, that was in a softer spot. She got a pretty nice trip there that day, and that somebody else went to the lead in front of Newspaper of Record, and then Newspaper of Record sat second. We were just talking about Holiday. Newspaper of Record is very similar to that. Like, that's not the trip Newspaper of Record won, so that made things a little easier on Uni that day. Was the last win enough to get you excited to use her in this spot, Chris?
Well, I think it was definitely encouraging, but like you said, she had a perfect trip, and the time came back on the same day. Ivar ran much faster at the same, on the same distance, on the same course, on the same day, just 2 races later. So that race came back kind of slow, so I'm not sure she's all the way back, but it definitely was her best performance of the year. I don't think the post helps her much. I don't see how she avoids a wide trip in here, even with Joel Rosario, although if you're going to have a rider on this kind of a horse in this kind of a race, he's probably as good as any.
Yeah, perfect fit, yeah.
But I think she's a contender. But Chad Brown, you said Uni and Sister Charlie, but Raging Bull is in this race without parole. His stable stars from last year just have not been running back to those numbers this year.
No.
With the exception of maybe Rushing Fall. That's about the only one that comes to mind. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're just a year older, but typically at the ages that they're running, you'd expect them to be running back from a barn like Chad Brown, at least as good as they had ran the year before. Uni's not that old as a 6-year-old. She ought to at least be able to come close to that. So, his barn's not running hot, and her last race was an improvement over her prior ones, but still a cut below a horse like, even Ivar, and the post isn't going to help her much, although the rider might. I have more confidence in Joel Rosario working a trip from that post than I do Joe Talamo, even though he did give the horse a really good ride last time out. And
finishing too. As far as finishing with a horse like this, he's as strong as it gets. In the late stages, there are very few that are going to out finish Joel when you're on even terms late. We get to this horse is between the 10 Holiday and the 13 Factor. The two real keys to this entire race, not in that more horses, but that. If one of them chose to take back and not go, the other horse could actually have an opportunity to sneak away. Factor This is really talented. He is a sort of old school horse who just chooses his speed. I respect horses like this so much, Chris, because I think we don't see enough of it anymore nowadays. We see a lot of horses who get taken back, a lot of rides and a lot of races where they're going really slow. That's really not the case with this horse. He will get out front always. He's going to get right out front. He's going to run his race. And if nobody goes and he doesn't get pushed, he'll win. I just on paper worry about the post. I worry about Holiday, maybe even a horse like Ivar or another horse who may be a little tactical, making him have to work a little bit harder than he needs to try to clear this field. And that's going to be difficult for him in the late stages. Ton of respect as a horse. I just don't know if this is a great spot.
I agree with you. I think between he and Holiday, I much prefer Factor This.
Yeah.
He's just been consistently, and he's run faster early and still finished well.
He'll fight you more. He feels like
Right.
more of a fighter. Like Halliday kind of, if he gets a cruising early, like own way, he's cool. This is a horse who's going to battle you.
The problem is, though, it really is the distance in that I think his ideal trip is like 1.125 miles, a mile and a quarter even, where he can get that lead and just settle into a nice high cruising speed. I think the shorter they go, the faster he has to go early, especially from that post and with Halliday. And so that might take a little starch out of that grit and the stretch run. But I think, he of the two speed horses, he's the one I think is the more dangerous of, and I think factor this will definitely be a factor and might even be a factor even at the end. So
yeah,
I'm not negative on him at all. I just think he's kind of up against it from a distance perspective and, with Halliday in the race.
Yep, sounds like we feel very, very similar about factor this. We round out the field with Raging Bull, another Chad Brown trainee. Raging Bull was the runner-up behind Ivar last time out. And, I mean, he's a nice horse. He was a grade 1 winner 4 starts back. But with his running style, he's at the mercy of a trip all the time. Things have to go perfect for him. He's drawn way outside. If he can just drop all the way back and settle and then make one big late run, I could see him picking up some pieces late. I just, you hit it before we even talked about any horses in this race. If you're looking and comparing some of the contenders in here, it's hard to compare the horses who have really bad posts with the horses who have really good posts from the inside. Like if it's going to be which one do I like, one or the other, I'm going to go with the horse who's got the much better post, and that's a little unfortunate for Raging Bull here, even though maybe it doesn't impact him as much as it does some of the other horses who are either speedy or maybe tactical, and they get hooked wider.
I agree, but winning from post 14
Yeah.
at a mile at Keeneland, that
against the best group he's ever faced by far.
Right. And a horse that typically does have to get lucky to win. I mean, when he runs his best and gets a good trip, he's a good horse. And I thought his last race was good. I mean,
yeah,
when he finally got in the clear, he came flying home late. So it's not like he doesn't have talent, but it almost seems like his best races have been when they keep him out of trouble. And in this case, that will mean a pretty wide trip. And it's hard to see him beating, some of these better horses like even Ivar but certainly, Kamiko, unless they just have brutal trips and lose their chances. It's kind of hard seeing Raging Bull getting the job done. But, and again, I've talked about the Chad Brown horses. They just haven't been quite as good this year as they were last year. So
yeah, you're absolutely right.
Example. Not so that they're running bad.
No, but lots of second and thirds instead of winning. Right. That's the difference, and that's what has made Chad Brown over the last few years is just sweeping races, winning everything. Instead, we're seeing a lot more minor awards and horses just on speed figures and numbers too, not quite as sharp either. This was a really fun field to discuss, a full field of 14 traveling a mile with some intriguing European horses. I always love watching some of those European replays. It's just fun and exciting. I'm a big replay guy myself. And then you have, as you mentioned, the U.S. horses who are a little bit up against it, mainly because of their draw. There are some talented horses towards the outside that could win, but they're going to really need to be on their A game, or things have to go perfectly for them to get the better of some of the horses to the inside. It feels like you and I kind of landed on the same horse as the one to beat in here with the two Kamiko. Give me some of the others that you'll be throwing in some exotics.
Yeah, I do think it comes down to trips, and given the post draw, I think it favors Euros. Kamiko is definitely the key, I think. I would use Circus Maximus and Siskin for sure. Probably Ivar, Uni, and Factor This or the others, and maybe Safe Voyage. But to me, Kamiko would be the key to the race for me in here.
Chris Larmey. Chris, give us your plugs for the folks who want to follow along. Great podcast. You have a lot of written stuff out there sometimes, and just a great follow on social media. Anything that we can expect from you coming out in the next days, and where can we follow along?
Well, on Twitter, I'm Derby1592, so DERBY1592. and I do tweet out a lot of stuff. I don't know if any of it's worth following, but I'm out there. Scott Carson and I from Sport of Kings, he has a contest website, sportofkings.net, and we do a podcast on a weekly basis. This week we're kind of on steroids because of the Breeders' Cup, and we just recorded a pod for the Friday races that will probably drop sometime this afternoon, and we're talking right now. I'm not sure when this will air, but we're
talking early Wednesday, and this will probably be out like Wednesday night. Yeah, before Thursday mornings, no doubt. So yeah.
And then we're going to do another pod on tomorrow covering the Saturday races. So if you want to hear more from me, you can listen on that. There's kind of pod overload right now going to the BC, but that's half the fun is listening to their opinions and chatting with people about the races. So
yeah, being a sponge, just like we said, and knowing how to use all of the information. Like one thing too, I'm not, and you're not, I'm sure you're not, I'm not the type of person, and many aren't, that I'm not going to just blindly put in somebody else's pick 5 ticket. But what I love to throw on your podcast, and if you were Scott, is mentioning a horse in a race where, I'm spreading out and you guys have a horse that I don't have, I'm always throwing that horse on my ticket. And I think, adding a lot of times, or when I have an opinion on a horse and then I hear one of you two feel similarly, it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence. Okay, maybe that's a horse I'll be a little bit more inclined to single now or feel that way. So yeah, there's so much information out there, and people don't say, I don't want to go information overload. I kind of go the other way. I like taking it all in, kind of absorbing it all. I learn some things and maybe some angles for the future. And you guys are a great listen. You bring on great different guests all the time. And as everybody could hear, as we went through this field, you're very, very sharp in many ways in handicapping and in gambling. And as a contest player, you kind of just look at it a little bit differently too. You're always trying to extract a little bit of value out of the race, which is the sort of similar to how I play. It's not just about picking the winner. It's about let's get some value while we're doing it.
Definitely. That's the key. It's not just picking winners. That's part of the process. But what you're really trying to do is find some value. So in the long run, you can come out ahead in a really challenging game.
Chris Larmey, really appreciate this, Chris. It's been a long time coming. I honestly, I miss it. It feels it was only about like a 6-month time during the Elite Racing Network days, but it feels like it went on for longer because I talked to you, I think every Saturday, Sunday for maybe close to that whole 6 months. And so it's always great catching up with you again. I miss those conversations, and hopefully we'll do this more often. Anytime you need a guest over there, let me know, and I'll love to get you back on here again.
Definitely. And I love, we will love to have you on our pod, and I'd love to join you again. We had a blast back when we did those Elite broadcasts. So I really enjoyed that. It was fun.
Me too. I learned a lot from you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. I'll touch base with you throughout the week, and let's hope we get Kamiko and a couple other winners on throughout the Friday, Saturday.
Sounds good. Good luck.
That is Chris Larmey. You heard how to follow him on social media. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be back in just a second. We'll move on from race number 9 to race number 10 on Breeders' Cup Saturday. It looks like Chris and I are going to land on the same one here with Kamiko, the number 2 in race number 9, the mile there. So I'm looking at Kamiko, the Deuce, who I have as my top selection there. I'll make a win wager as long as he's like 3-1 or over. I think that's fair value. I just hope he doesn't get hit a little harder than that. Siskin will also be on my tickets, and the 6 Safe Voyage will be on most tickets as well. Those are sort of the top tier for me, 2, 4, 6. And the next tier of horses to include would be 5, Digital Age, the 13, Factor This, and the question marks I would have would be the 11 and 12. Would be Ivar and Uni. Neither would completely shock me, and I just like some others a little bit more. So it would be 2, 4, 6, 5, 13. And then the others to look at would be 11 and 12, depending on the price and how deep you want to go. That is in the Breeders' Cup Mile, race number 9 on Saturday over at Keeneland. I want to let you know a little bit about our friends over at OldSmokeClothing.com. I mentioned that we had an interview with the co-founder, Kurt Rossner, on the previous podcast, on the part 1 episode of the Breeders' Cup Saturday. OldSmokeClothing.com is a website, is a company that has horse racing t-shirts, hats, zip-ups, quality clothing here. Talking hoodies, tank tops, long sleeve shirts. And with the promo code GINO, you can get free shipping on your order. Custom designs with whatever you want. You can check out special collections that they have, like the Kentucky Derby or Secretariat. Then they have the Clubhouse. Clubhouse is a exclusive membership for fans, quarterly packages delivered to your doorsteps with apparel and exclusive things, items, experience that encompass the lifestyle of the sport of kings. So for $500, you have 4 separate deliveries. You get the Eclipse, 4 separate quarterly packages. The Eclipse, which comes the first week of January, the Derby, which comes the first week of April, the Spa, which comes the first week of July, and the Royal, which comes the first week of October. Each of these quarterly packages will include a t-shirt that is only available to members, custom horse racing themed gift, and then another package filler. Annually, you're going to get a headwear made exclusively for members. You're going to get designer outerwear made exclusively for members. In this membership perk, you get 20% off all of your orders at oldsmokeclothing.com. You get access to the Old Smoke Clubhouse online forum. You get a video featured appearance on americasbestracing.net, quarterly betting contest, cashback referral program, additional perks added quarterly. For more information, you can email clubhouse@oldsmokeclothing.com. That's just one of the many things at oldsmokeclothing.com. And don't forget about that promo code GINO. Get you free shipping on your order. Are you a big fan of Tis the Law, Midnight Bisou, maybe Authentic, or She Dares the Devil? They have t-shirts that represent all of those horses. Show the horse racing fan in you. And don't forget, promo code GINO gets you free shipping on your order. On to the Distaff, race number 10 for your Saturday Breeders' Cup card. Christina Blacker from TVG will join me to discuss race number 10. We go horse by horse throughout the field for the Distaff. Kick back and enjoy. One of the most exciting races of all of Breeders' Cup weekend coming up. It is the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And I am really excited to talk to one of my old friends, well, still my friend, but one of my old colleagues over at TVG. Someone, you see someone like almost every day or a few times a week for years, and then all of a sudden you don't see him at all. Christina, I miss you so much. How you doing? Christina Blacker joining us here on That's What G Said.
I know, it's been a long time. It is great to be with you. I'm doing well. I just got to Kentucky and just sort of adjusting to the time, but excited to see some of the horses here up close and personal for myself and to kind of make those final decisions as we get closer to Friday and Saturday.
Oh, and we got a cool race to talk about. I mean, when you're talking about some of the stars in the sport of horse racing right now, we've got 2 big ones in the Distaff. That's sort of how the betting will probably be played out, in that it looks like on paper, Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl. And what a top 2 to headline this race. We're talking about Monomoy Girl, who won the Distaff back in 2018, a couple years ago. And then, as you know, with being the wife of a trainer, when a horse has an injury like that, a lot of times they just don't come back, or if they do, they're never the same as Monomoy Girl. And she's come back and actually run figures that are just as good, even better.
Yeah, that's the thing about her that's so remarkable, isn't it? I mean, for one thing, her overall record, 12 for 14, to spend all that time that she did on the sidelines. I mean, from November of 2018, from that Breeders' Cup Distaff at Churchill, all the way until May of this year. And then to come back, as you say, not only 3 victories, but I'm a big Thorograph player. And if you look at her page, she's getting better year on year. And we're seeing that from her. And we're seeing the numbers, the lower the number, the better the race on Thorograph. The numbers are going lower. She's into the negative territory in her last couple of races. And she really is as good, if not better, than she has ever been right now.
And we were lucky in just as far as the older filly and mare division, because sort of when she went down, Midnight Bisou kind of picked up the mantle for her and ran with it for a while, and she was the top. Unfortunately, there's no Midnight Bisou in this race, but we're going to have a filly who's going to step up and face older. And Christina, I don't think I can remember a campaign. I mean, even the Rachel Alexandra campaign when she beat the boys and she went all over, she didn't run this much she didn't travel all over to all of these different tracks with no breaks from November. I don't remember filly, mare, colt, older, younger, a horse quite like this one that we've seen. You keep every race. I keep thinking it's got to catch up with her, right? And then she just keeps running better.
I know. I completely agree. I mean, you look at her past performances from, this time last year, and you're talking about races at Tampa, Fairgrounds, Gulfstream, Oaklawn, Santa Anita, Keeneland, Saratoga, Churchill, Pimlico. This is the first time she's been back to someplace at all in a calendar year. It really is remarkable. And, looking at her and watching her and seeing the way she is in the mornings and the way she trains and the way she just kind of is a little bit of a boss out there, struts her stuff and is very full of herself. And even in the barn in the morning when other horses start to go out, she gets antsy. She gets to pawing at the ground. She gets to sort of letting people know, her trainer most notably, that she wants to get out there and have her opportunity to train as well. So you can see why Kenny McPeak just kind of keeps going back to the well, because she is so hardy and so strong and really thriving. But I agree with you. You look at her races and you think at some point, gosh, these battles that she's been in those last two races especially, are they ever going to catch up with her? I'm not sure. I don't think so. The one thing that I will say, though, from looking at just especially her last two races, talking about Swiss Skydiver and isolating her and her trips, I noticed that in the Kentucky Oaks, as soon as She Dares the Devil kind of took control and asserted herself, it seemed to me like Swiss Skydiver didn't really want to fight on and try to pass her. Like, she almost has a bit of an attitude herself, and she knew she was passed and just wasn't really laying it down. Whereas in the Preakness, you watch that kind of cagey move from Robbie Alvarado going down the backstretch where he sent her through the rail early in the race, took control of the race, and at that point, she was sort of the dominant horse in that battle all the way down the length of the stretch in the Preakness. She never really let Authentic get by. I think that's kind of how she wants to have things go, her own way, and that she's in control. And I'm wondering how that's all going to shake out, because Monomoy Girl really does benefit from drawing to the outside. I think either one of them can stalk and have a target. Either one of them could go to the lead and take control the whole way around there. But the opportunity and the advantage to Monomoy Girl on the outside with the draw, I think, is going to play out to have a significance in the outcome this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just flip-flopping the two of them, getting to sit to the outside of one another. And that was a really key point you mentioned on Swiss Skydiver, because it's sort of she's sort of the opposite of what you would think with most other horses. Like, she wants to fight you. Other situations you would say, oh, well, don't get caught up in sort of a battle, maybe sit off the horse or sit behind. She's the other way. It's like you don't want to let her sit too far back, I think, just like you said, because then maybe she gets, I don't want to say lazy, but she's kind of okay running where she is. If you're neck and neck with her, she's not gonna put up. She's not gonna stop. She's gonna put up a fight. She's gonna battle you. And I've just gained so much respect for her throughout this year. And what a great job they've done with her. Let's go inside to outside, and we'll hit a thought or two on each of these horses, and then we'll give some final thoughts overall. We have a couple West Coast horses down towards the inside. And Cece, Christina, got really, really good in the early part of 2020 when she won the Beholder Mile, and then she went over and won the Apple Blossom. She looked like she was on that short list of the best fillies in training out there right now in North America. And then she wasn't bad. She just kind of tailed off a little bit. She ran into Fighting Mad a couple times, who got loosed on the lead, and then she really didn't have much excuse in her last start. She was just kind of chasing a really fast pace, and I think that's a little bit more than what she wants to do. I could see her jumping up and running big, but is it big enough to compete with the top two?
Yeah, that's a good point. Even if she's on her absolute A game, is it enough? I'm not sure, but I really think that after the Apple Blossom, she just got a little sour. Like her last few races, the Santa Maria, the Clement Hirsch, to me, and when you watch those replays, she just didn't try at all at that point. I was a little bit encouraged by the Derby City Distaff in that she was chasing a pace and she was never going to keep up with those horses. But I did think that as they turned for home, she made a move. She actually tried. And I didn't see that from her in Southern California in the two races prior. So I think the one thing for her that is maybe sort of hoping that she's going to get back to some of that form is if that race sharpened her up, which I think that's possible. But again, even if she does get back to her best, I think she has her hands full with Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl.
Yeah, toughest she's ever going to face, and she's going to have to go the farthest she's ever been, too. Like, if this was at a mile, I'd feel maybe a little bit better about her chances, saving some ground from the inside. But I don't know if she really wants to even go this far. We will move to the number 2, who Harvest Moon, who's gotten really good for Simon Callahan, an excellent conditioner. This one's won 4 in a row, and she beat the sharp fighting Mad, who beat Cece a couple times. It's a situation where I'm just a little concerned because she's got that same sort of running style as Monomoy Girl and as Swiss Skydiver, and she could be right up in that same flight. I love where she's going. I love what she's doing, and I've kind of got her earmarked as maybe a filly to keep an eye on next year. And I wouldn't be shocked if she hit the board in here. Same type of thing. I use those two in this race in particular as like a measuring stick and how everyone stacks up towards them, and I just don't know if she's there quite yet.
I would agree, but I also think that she is improving really rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of scary, right? Like she
Yep.
could be scary good, and she is going to be one of those that at 4 years old, you're really looking forward to what she's able to do. I think that as far as the pace goes, she has kind of been forced to keep up with some of the front runners just because she didn't want to let those horses get away from her.
Great point in
Talking
small
about
fields in
Fighting
SoCal.
Mad and
Mhm.
talking about, Hard Not to Love. Like those are fast horses. I think ideally Harvest Moon would rather sit a little farther back with that big stride and then just kind of get rolling late. I'm wondering if we see Flavien Prat just let her settle a bit more because we know that there's that speed from Monomoy Girl and from Swiss Skydiver, and if he lets her sit mid-pack, she's a big filly with a big stride. He does need to keep her out in the clear, but perhaps if those two are so busy with each other, the only way to beat them is to blow by them and not to get involved in one of those battles. I think there's a scenario where Harvest Moon could come with that big stride, be rolling late. I wouldn't be shocked, I guess I should say, if she were to get up and win because she is improving so quickly, but she does need to keep taking those very incremental steps forward to beat them on Friday or on Saturday.
Which is something that Dunbar Road didn't do in her last start. She won the Delaware Handicap, and in her first couple starts this year, she beat horses that she was just better than. But when she was really tested, she was really flat at last time out. I guess we can give her a mulligan, though. It was sort of a weird race, and so anytime there's a race where there's a sort of a runoff horse that goes loose, like 8 or 9 lengths. In this case, the horse right next to her, Horologist, was in the same race, and Horologist ran a bizarre race because Horologist was fast, was right up on the pace battling, and then realized early on they were going way too quick. So she dropped back. She was like 3 lengths out of it, and then it looked like she was going to be just backing out of it and running last. She was like backing up, and then boom, kicked into another gear, came right back. Never let Dunbar Road get by her, and she went right by, and she ends up winning by 3. So these are the 2, the 3 and the 4, Dunbar Road and Horologist. They come out of the Beldame, and if you're looking at figures, Dunbar Road is probably a little bit light. Horologist got a big number for that last one. She's won 2 of her last 3. With these 2, do you either one of them strike your fancy at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I think Dunbar Road, what I like about her the most is that she just seems like a real professional. She kind of, relaxes. You can sort of put her anywhere you want to as far as the pace goes. I think she's another one that'll end up being shuffled back a little further off than we're used to seeing her, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily for her. I like the fact that she has that really long kind of sustained run, but she doesn't necessarily have the acceleration that the other top 2 horses that we keep talking about have. So again, I see her maybe rolling down the middle of the racetrack, possibly getting a piece of it. I'm not sure she's there as far as the figures go to pass, some of the others in here. Horologist, to me, what I like most about her is how Bill Mott really campaigns for specific goals. And I think if you look at her and her pattern of numbers, it looks like she's just getting better and better right now. And he really does cultivate horses to peak on a big day. It's like Richard Mandela, these kind of old school trainers, they train with these championships in mind these days.
They don't worry about win percentage.
See her. Yeah, no, they're exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about a campaign and an overall resume. So I could see her continuing to improve as well. And she'll need to, if she wants to get to Monomoy Girl or Swiss Skydiver. I think if I had to choose between the 2 of them, though, I'd probably lean more towards Horologist right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I echo your sentiments in that I might even like Dunbar Road going a little longer because she just
Hmm.
is such a grinder. Like if they were going a mile and a quarter and just keep going because, like you said, if she's 4 or 5 lengths behind, I'm worried that she doesn't have the turn of foot to pass everyone. But if she's just in a perfect spot and can just grind along, she might be tough to pass if she's right up in the mix. So 2 horses coming out of the Beldame there. We talked a lot about Swiss Skydiver. We'll move to Lady Kate. Lady Kate was in a situation last time out in the Spinster that probably on paper looked a lot better for her, and she was still overmatched by Valiant, Ollie's Candy. She's been defeated by Monomoy Girl a couple times here. She's a pace type. I mean, I could see her on the lead and maybe the other two sitting second and third behind her if they want to let her go.
Yeah, that's true. And that's going to be really interesting just to see how much of an effect she has on the early pace
Mm-hmm.
because, does she kind of take it to Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl early, or does Tyler Gaffleone just let her find her own stride and not sort of take her weapon away from her, which is to use that speed. As you say, overmatched, I think is a good word for her. She's a very nice filly and she's a stakes winner, but she needs to improve many, many lengths if she wants to compete with these horses. But she will have an impact just
Mm-hmm.
because of that early speed. And I think you could say kind of the same for Point of Honor to her outside in a different way. She's going to be closing. She'll be a different tactical type. But again, she's a nice filly, and maybe she's one that's going to continue to get better and better. And she's been there or thereabouts in these grade ones. But these horses have beaten her kind of on the square a few times. And I don't see Lady Kate or Point of Honor really turning the tables on some of these older fillies that have already beaten them so far.
No, I'm fine with if you're an exacta tri super player, I'm fine with Point of Honor in 2, 3, 4 spots. It just feels like so much would need to go right for her, and
Hmm.
kind of the way that you were pointing, like picturing the race. I can see a situation where Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl are really worried about each other, and they're riding this race to kind of make their moves and playing a little cat and mouse, and then one of them gets a little tired early. I could see Point of Honor picking up some pieces, completing your try at a big price. Sure, I'd have a tough time getting to her in the win end here. She would need to jump up. What about a lightly raced horse like the number 8 here, Valiance, who has won 3 in a row? She just won the Spinster, and she beat Ollie's Candy. I will say is that Ollie's Candy is lined up right next to her too. Poor Ollie's Candy is one of the most unlucky mares that you will find. She's a grade 1 winner. She's run all over, but when you look at some of her defeats and just some of the trips that she's had where she kind of had to get inside and get shuffled, or she loses by a neck or a nose, she always shows up. And Valiance is a nice one. She's on the upswing. Again, though, like the same conversation we've had with all of these. How are they going to be able? What kind of a trip would they need, or how would this race need to unfold for them to beat one of the big gals in here?
Yeah, I think for me, Valiance outside of the top two is probably the next horse. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm giving you a 1, 2, 3, I think Valiance is my third horse in here because one angle that I always love is that improving 4-year-old, and I really think that's her. You look at her last few races, and they've also switched her, from the turf to the main track. I think they've really figured out what she's best at now. And she's getting better with each and every start. I think in that last race, she did have a perfect trip, I'll say that. But she held off the rally from
She kind
Ollie's
of makes
Candy
her
late,
trip though. She's the
Yeah.
kind of one. She's been in that trip every time.
Yeah, no, I
That's
think that's fair to say. And I think that's probably puts her right in the perfect spot behind that cat and mouse game that you're talking about with the Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Girl, right? She's not going to be as far back as Dunbar Road or as Point of Honor, but she's not going to be up there on the lead fighting it out early. I think she sits a really good trip in here. And because she's improving, if the top two outdo each other, I think she's the horse. I think she's the one that gets there. As far as Ollie's Candy goes, I completely agree. I mean, she's about a length away from 4 grade 1 wins. If you add up all those defeats, I think the most heartbreaking one was the Apple Blossom
oh
because
yeah.
she just did all the dirty work on the front end and then still was passed in that last little bit. She's durable. She's tough. I love her, but she seems to me, she's always under a drive. You look through her
Yeah.
races and every stride they're asking and pushing and really having to get after her to give her best. She's relentless, but she keeps coming up short in those battles. And I'd love to see it all come together for her kind of on the biggest stage, because that would be sort of a reward for all of those heartbreaking defeats. But I think it's probably going to be much of the same for her. She's kind of one-paced, and I don't see her able to out-battle horses that have already defeated her this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you told me she was a 2, 3, 4 runner in here, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be a little surprised if she was able to get by the top 2. And then Monomoy Girl rounds out the field. And I kind of feel the same way with you, Christina. After and we'll all have different approaches on how we're gonna wager on this race, and some will probably single Monomoy Girl, some will single Swiss Skydiver, some will use them both, and it depends. Are you a pick 4 player, pick 5 player? Are you playing your tries? Or I would be right there with you with the next horse for me, and that would be Valiance, and then after that would probably be CC for me with some question marks. At least knowing that CC has a race or two to jump back to that could probably beat this group. But we got a quality group. To me, this is one of the most fun things about the Breeders' Cup, when you get a really cool 3-year-old coming in facing an older horse, and we honestly could not have scripted out a better matchup with a 3-year-old like Swiss Skydiver in the year she's had. She's beat the boys, and then she comes in here and she faces a former Breeders' Cup Distaff winner who's been near perfect, as you mentioned, over the last couple of years, Monomoy Girl. So not only do we have a good race with quality horses, we have some fun storylines leading into the Distaff.
Yeah, we really do. And, there was a little chatter on Twitter about this after the Preakness, talking about chestnut mares. And sometimes they can just be really known for being especially kind of cantankerous or difficult to deal with at times. And I think that's part of what makes a good filly great, right? You think back over the years, all the really great ones kind of had a little bit of an attitude. I think you get that from both Monomoy Girl and Swiss Skydiver. They
almost
very
all
much
athletes,
are
right?
equal.
You got it. In any sport, any great athlete, you have to have a little bit of an ego, a little bit of that little confidence to get to where you are. Right it's not a coincidence why you're one of the best of the best, and it's a lot of times it's what's between the ears as much as the talent there too. So I agree. I'm really, in a year that's been so trying, Christina, this weekend did not disappoint. I mean, from as far as whatever you want, if you want to see quality with the stars, if you want big fields. I mean, the first race on Friday is a 14-horse field with 2-year-olds going 5.5 furlongs on the turf.
It's true. It really is. And touch wood, I mean, we had Vekoma came up with a fever, and so we'll not run in the sprint. But I think overall, you think about the last couple of weeks and this last bit of training, everybody's showing up. Everybody's here. We're not dealing with some huge last-minute defection, and I don't want to speak too soon because we do still have some time. But still, for the most part, despite all the circumstances and despite even the hoops that we all have to jump through, whether it's the horses, the horsemen, the staff that need to be there, everybody's been able to get here and get here safely and to compete this weekend.
Christina, I am so happy to have talked to you, and honestly, you are one of the absolute best when it comes to handicapping, when it comes to reporting, but you might be the nicest person in all of horse racing. You are so sweet. You are so honest with everyone. That's why they love you. That's why everyone always likes to give you information and tell you what's going on, and you are so well informed. I look forward to bringing you back. I'm in my head, I'm like, I can't believe I haven't talked to her or brought her on the show before to talk. So thank you so much for coming on with me, and let the folks out there know when can we see you this week? What are some of the things that you're working on, and where can we follow you?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I sincerely do. I'll be everywhere. I'm going to be on the Players Show, which is sort of the international simulcast feed. I'll do a little bit of work for TVG as well, just kind of bouncing back and forth between those two shows, finishing up the Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup shows, which has been really fun to see the horses bright and early in the mornings. And then just on Twitter and Instagram and doing some stuff for Equibase this week as well, researching those stats, racelands, angles like usual, and just kind of, I don't know, I've got a lot going on, but it's great to be a part of all of it and just to be talking about the game that we all love.
And just before I let you go, I was listening to one of watching a replay, and I'm pretty sure it was you from the Breeders' Cup Mile from last year when the two gals won, and I think you just said "girl power." You were so excited, and so that's where we're going to hear you on a lot of the Breeders' Cup feeds, right?
I was like, so fingers crossed. Last year I singled the late pick 4 on Saturday. So Uni was one of my top picks.
That's
Dino
great.
Rosso, basically the Distaff. I had Blue Prize, all of them. So I'm hoping that it all comes together again, because I have definitely put in the time. I've watched more replays than, I mean, my head is spinning. I've gotten so much
We can tell.
information.
I was going to say, we can absolutely
I
tell.
just hope it all pays off and the horses get a little racing luck and it turns out to be helpful to people out there.
Christina, thank you so much. Appreciate your hard work. You have a great week, and hope you and the family are doing well. I always get a smile on my face anytime I see a Dan Blacker horse get a win. I'm always rooting for you guys. So hope all is well, and I'd love to talk to you again soon. Maybe when Santa Anita gets ready to open back up, I'll bring you back on around opening day time.
That'd be great, Gino. Call anytime. Good to talk to you.
Folks, don't go anywhere. A big thank you to Christina Blacker there from TVG. We'll be back with much more on That's What G Said. Always nice talking to Christina. It's been a while since I was able to catch up with her. This has actually been her first time on That's What G Said. Hopefully the first of many more. Make sure to follow along with Christina. You could tell she was super prepared and ready to rock to talk about the Distaff. And I agree with her with most. It's hard for me to make cases against Midnight Bisou. I was going to say against Monomoy Girl and Twist Skydiver. A lot of it would come down to price. If I like the post a little bit better for Monomoy Girl, I probably it would be tight. I mean, it would be. I don't like doing this where you're using 2 short price horses in one race. But in this particular case, I'm going to be using the both of them, and then probably CC. In some exotics, I will throw in Valiance, who Christina was talking about, and Point of Honor would be my next 2. So be 5, 10, 1, 8, 7. How I have them stacked here in the Distaff. 5, 10. Feel a cut above everyone else, and probably a lot of exotics that'll be just built around those 2, which means, you know, if I'm going to shorten up and be using 2 horses or maybe those 2 NCC, so not a ton of opportunities for big prices, I can't just play other races with Chalk 2. So keep an eye on how you're building your tickets when you're playing your pick 4s, your pick 5s. You don't want to just be using, even though it is the Breeders' Cup, right? We still think big fields, big payouts and everything. You don't want to be setting yourself up to where you're only using the top couple choices in multiple races in a row, because it's just really not worth playing unless you're playing a small ticket, punch it, and repeat it a few times. That's the Breeders' Cup Distaff. We're going to move from the Distaff to the turf. Before we do, we have to talk about Cera Candles. CERA candles.com. That's the website, ceracandles.com. And if you use the promo code GINO, it'll get you 10% off your purchase. These are all natural soy wax candles. They're not like the normal paraffin wax candles that you see with the other leading brands. These ones have no toxins, no carcinogens, no pollutants. They're handmade. They're going to burn longer, and they're better for you. Affordable pricing. We're talking like 20 different options on candle scents, seasonal scents for every mood, every time, 3 different sizes for you. This is a local small business. I know the creator. I know Tyler Herringer, who runs Cera Candles, went to school with him, grew up with him, played on sports teams with him. This is a really good guy. He just wanted to create a candle that he loved, that he thought was going to be a little bit healthier, and he figured, wow, you know what? This is something that I want to be able to share with friends, family, and created Cera Candle Company. Now has the business, a small business. Let's support them. Don't forget that promo code GINO, 10% off your purchase. This is a great holiday gift with the Christmas and all the holidays coming up soon. Friends, family, boyfriend, girlfriend, co-workers, anyone you can send these to, because you can give them a different candle for different holiday, different date of the year, scents for different moods, maybe just the way that one you think will represent each one of your friends or someone in your life. ceracandles.com, promo code GINO, gets you 10% off the purchase. On to the Breeders' Cup Turf. Andrew Champagne and Darin Zoccali back They were with me earlier to talk about the filly and mare turf on part 1 of the Breeders' Cup Saturday podcast. They're going to be back to talk about the turf on this one. Andrew Champagne, Darin Zoccali. We talk Breeders' Cup turf. On to the Breeders' Cup Turf, race number 11. Darin Zoccali, Andrew Champagne joining me again to discuss this one. And I gotta say, there's a horse who we'll begin with right off the bat. We're on race number 11 on November the 7th, and we're going a mile and a half at Keeneland on the turf course here. We're beginning with Arklow. Arklow was good last time out. There's no getting around that. I just have played against him a lot recently. He generally takes a good amount of money. I cannot see him winning the Breeders' Cup. He's been 4th and 8th in his 2 prior Breeders' Cup turfs. He defeated Red Knight, who came back to win the Great Day Sycamore. He was 5th. He was 2 deep. He was 3 off. He got the jump, and he was challenged. He put away the rival, Red Knight, who was the next out winner. Nothing to knock about his last effort. I don't know if he can step up and win this one, Darin, and I would want a better price on him than 5-1.
Yeah, you touched on it there. I mean, we talked about morning lines, and there are some bad lines throughout this Breeders' Cup. I know we're not talking about the mile, but Ivar might be the worst favorite in the history of that race in terms of morning line. But how is Arklow the same price on the morning line as Channel Maker? I mean, and I'm not saying that Channel Maker is the end-all, be-all, but from a speed figure perspective, from the eye test, from the fact that this race doesn't really have a whole lot of early speed to it, how is Channel Maker not, I don't know, half the price of Arklow? Like that, I mean, to me, that's just crazy. If you're getting the same price on Arklow or Channel Maker, you're betting Channel Maker every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Look, you know, he ran well in the Kentucky Turf Cup, but I just don't think Red Knight and Zulu Alpha are up to this type of competition. You know, can he rally into it for a piece? Sure, but he's in no better form, and he's actually a little bit slower this year coming into this race than he was last year. Now, I understand there's no bricks and mortar in this field, but I don't like him at all at 5-1. I mean, you know, can he run an okay third? Sure, but like you said, I would want a hell of a bigger price than this.
I need to say something before we start because I'm going to be saying this for a lot of horses in this field. I need to just do something right off the bat just so nobody says anything stupid. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I say that because the American turf horses this year, I can't do it. You're telling me that Arklow, a loser of 10 of his last 12 starts, dating back to the start of 2019, is 5-1 in the Breeders' Cup Turf, which boasts a $4 million purse. No, just no. I want no part of this horse. If this horse beats me, I will gladly live with it. I will gladly admit that I was wrong, but Darin hit it. Lousy morning line here with Arklow at 5-1. I think he'll be closer to 15-1 than he will be to 5-1. Yes, he looked fine last time out in a grade 3 at Kentucky Downs. This is not a grade 3 at Kentucky Downs. The Euros are here. They are here in full force, and we'll get to a couple of them in the next couple of horses we take a look at. No dice for me with Arklow.
Magical is just a really quality mare. She was a 2018 runner-up. She's an obvious top contender. She's been a little better at a mile and a quarter as of late. Last out, she was asked early. She settled 5th in between horses. She was in the 3rd flight, about 4 lengths off. She was searching for room, but she was buried inside. She was just begging out for a seam. She was blocked. It was a brutal trip. She got some room late. She just missed 2nd. I can't let her beat me in here, Darin. She's going to be one of the top contenders. I think she deserves to be so. She's really, really quality. I'm probably not making a win wager on her at 5-2 or 2-1, but I'm not letting her beat me.
So, in all honesty, I think she's better at a mile and a quarter than she is in a mile and a half. That's just now. I understand that she's run well in a mile and a half, and obviously her effort against the Enable in the turf a couple of years ago. I mean, I get it, but I don't think this is her A+ distance. She's still the most talented horse in the field. I wouldn't want to take too short of a price. She's not coming into this as some kind of a European juggernaut, but she's talented. She's well posted. She should be able to work out a good trip here behind the speed, and she'll get, close to first run on them. Utmost respect for her. She's not my top pick in the race, but I can't let her beat me either.
I'm in a similar boat. I picked her second in here. Back in 2019, the only problem she had is she kept running into a Enable. She was second in the Coral Eclipse. She was second in the Yorkshire Oaks. And in the Yorkshire Oaks, she beat the third place finisher by 10 lengths. Magical's been running time form ratings in the 120 to 125 range. If you go off the conversion scale, that'd be in the mid 100s, probably about a 105, 106, 107 as a buyer speed figure. That kind of a race would make her very tough to beat in here. The only hesitation that I have is something that you two mentioned with regard to the distance. She's a 1.25 mile horse. She can go 1.5 miles. It's not quite her A game, and for that reason, I picked her second as opposed to on top, but she is one of 2 A horses in here for me. She's 5-2 on the morning line. She will almost certainly go favorite.
I've got the filly Tarnawa picked on top. She's looking for her 4th win in a row. She's got back-to-back Group 1 wins. She's got legit excuses for 2 of the only poor performances you really see on the page. Last out, she ends up settling about 9th of 10. She's 8 lengths off. She's in the 2-path. She tips to the outside, and she just plucks them off. She really got going, and it was more than a neck defeat. It was like a well-measured defeat, and she had him all the time. I like Tarnawa quite a bit in here. If we can get anything around 5-1, what do you think, DZ?
Yeah, key use for me. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a strong opinion as a specific winner in this race. This is not a race that I'm going to be keying on in multi-race exotics and taking a stand. But Tarnawa is going to be one of my A horses for all the reasons that you said. Developing at the right time, getting better and better, beating good horses. I just think that she fits this spot nicely. I think the Europeans are better than the Americans. And I think she's probably second most likely to win the race, third most likely to win the race, and the price should, be decent enough there. So, yeah, for me, she's a key use, and she's going to be on the top line.
There's a lot to like here with Tarnawa. European getting first-time Lasix, which I love, especially if you heard me talk about that in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf preview that we did. Europeans tend to get a big bump when getting Lasix for the very first time. Trainer Dermot Weld is a world-class horseman. This guy knows how to win big races. Soumillon comes over to ride, has won 2 straight Group 1 events over in France. The distance will not be a problem. 6-1 on the morning line. I'll take the under on that. Tarnawa is my top pick. I agree with Gino completely, and Gino, that should scare the hell out of you.
It does. Like the name of this next horse, Medahi.
Bless you.
There's the number 4 here. Darin, I can't really get to her in this race. She's really been her own worst enemy too. And Andrew was going through the running lines in one of the previous races we talked about, and dwelt towards the rear, steadied behind leaders, towards the rear, off slow. Lacked room. She's just another one who finds trouble, and I just can't play her off the current form.
No, I can't either. Listen, Europeans are better than the Americans, for sure, but the other Europeans are better than this European. So I think, we've had some goofy results in the past, with some horses that have surprised you as not being, the top flight European horse. But this horse would need to step up tremendously, and the others would have to not run a step. It's for me, this one's a pass.
Perhaps the biggest indictment on this one's chances is that Frankie Dettori opts to ride the other John Gosden trainee, Medai. I really hope I'm saying that right. Is a pass for me. Hasn't won in more than a year. Was a decent horse last summer. Won a Group 2. Was second in a Group 1 at Goodwood, going 1.25 miles. Just seems like this one's tailed off a little bit since then.
The 5 is Donja at 30-1 on the morning line, and I couldn't really make as strong of a case for. This is a one who comes in from Germany. This is a Group 1 winner from Germany, but she has no speed. She's going to have to pass a ton of these horses, and I have a tough time really getting a gauge as to how those races stack up compared to some of the other, races with some really, really strong Europeans. So I can't be playing Donja in here.
No, I can't either. No speed, goes to the back. Effort 2 back on a yielding course was good, but look, I mean, if I remember correctly, I think didn't Scirocco come here to win the turf in 05 from Germany?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think this horse is Scirocco, though. I haven't seen one come from Germany since then that could, level up to him. So, again, similar thing. There's other Europeans that have more appeal.
Yeah, any European getting first-time Lasix gets my respect. Won a Group 1 2-back over in Germany, a 117 time form rating. That's just a cut below some of the others in here. It would not surprise me if she found a way to run third or fourth simply because the American turf runners just are not up to snuff this year, but I can't see her winning.
We move to the number 6, and that is Lord North. Last out, he's 8-1 on the morning line. Last time out, it was a race over a soft course. He was 3 deep. He was 6th. He was mid-pack. He was moving up, and he got to within 2. Nothing. Backed up. Ran last. Probably a race you can put a line right through. Toss it. You go back to August the 19th, and a pretty decent third behind Magical that day. Was 2 deep in a small field. 3 lengths off in between. Was okay. The races prior to that are back-to-back. 2 races that are as good as any performance in here. Those are going 1.25 miles, though. Can he do that going 1.5 miles, Darin, and coming off of a lackluster effort?
On a soft ground that looked like it was very tiring. I'll put it to you this way. When the odds board opens up for the Breeders' Cup Turf, I am going to be very interested in this horse's price. Because if that last race completely shies people away, and he's sitting up there at like 13-1 or something absurd like that, this horse to me is a legitimate win contender. For all the reasons that you said. Big win back in July at Haddock, no big deal. But then he goes from that, runs a monster race in the Prince of Wales. Go watch it. I mean, visually impressive, explodes in the stretch. Now, in the Juddmonte, not only was he right there at Magical, at the wire, I think maybe about 3/4 of a length behind her, the winner of that race was considered by many to be the best turf horse in the world until he retired, I believe, after that race. So this horse is right there with the best on the planet. The best on the planet is not in this race. And if you draw a line through that, attribute it to the soft going, look, do Bowie's, they get 1.5 miles? Yes, there have been Dubawis that can get 1.5 miles. But typically 1.25 miles is, where they want to be. Now, that being said, Frankie Dettori can find a way to get more out of horses than we've seen with a lot of riders in the past. He's got to be able to do that here. He's got to get him to relax, wait for the exact right moment to make his move. 10, 11, 12-1, I'm betting him, but it comes down to price for me, but he's on my top line.
I'm just a little concerned about the race last time out. I understand it was soft going. Having said that, the race that he ran in the Juddmonte International, where he ran into the monster you mentioned, was still a slight regression from the race he ran 3 back in the Prince of Wales. If there's a concern here, it's maybe this horse was better earlier in the year. However, that Dettori guy shows up here, and if you listen to the Philly and Mare Turf preview, never, ever, 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 ever. I think I got all the evers exactly right. I may have been off by 1 or 2. You can't ignore Frankie Dettori in a Breeders' Cup race on the grass. That is how good he is. It's a John Gosden trainee getting Lasix for the first time. He's a B for me because I don't know if you peaked earlier in the season and the distance is a little bit of an unknown. However, if the Lord North that showed up in the Prince of Wales shows up in the paddock at Keeneland, look out.
What's going to happen early in this race, DZ, with United and with Channelmaker in here? Are they going to get aggressive with United to try to go to the front? You think they'll try to sit maybe off of Channelmaker if Channelmaker gets aggressive? United is a horse who, he was just defeated in the Breeders' Cup last year behind Bricks and Mortar. And since then, he's had a really strong year. He feels a little different to me than a lot of the other West Coast horses that we discuss, mainly because I've seen him do it last year. And he has sort of a nice tactical style where he could get a jump on a lot of the other horses. He's not an easy horse to pass. He's got to be up close, either on the lead or sitting really close to it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that, Channel Maker, I think, is going to go to the front because that's what's worked in the last two races. And I think if he wants to be quicker than United, he is. And I think United can let him go and probably will have enough room to just lay second a length off him and hope that trip, works out similar to how it did last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf where it almost pulled off, the monster upset. Again, I don't think United, despite, his good year, despite the fact that he hasn't run a bad race in forever, I just don't think he's as good as the European horses. And last year, there wasn't really a European like there is this year. Anthony Van Dyke is a nice horse guy, and I bring up that name reluctantly because of what happened as we saw in the Melbourne Cup. But, for me, United is going to have all he's got to do to get by Channel Maker, let alone hold off the Euro invasion. So I don't expect as good a result as he put forth last year.
The other thing with United that scares me is, yes, he's won a lot in California. He's never had to ship. And when you haven't shipped before and you don't know if the horse can do it, single-digit odds on a horse that's been winning a lot of Grade 2 races in a Grade 1 race with a world-class field seems like a little bit of an underlay. United's a very nice horse with a lot of tactical speed. Flavien Prat is a world-class turf rider. It wouldn't shock me if he ran well. It would surprise me if he won.
Red King is the number 8. Red King has won 3 in a row, but again, another one who has been doing his work in California. He's going to have to worry about shipping. Darin, do you have a reason to sell me or anyone on Red King?
Do you want a short answer so we can move on? No, I don't.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sam, yep.
Yeah, I got nothing either. This was a horse that ran really well in the San Juan Capistrano. That's 1 3/4 miles at Santa Anita against glorified allowance horses. He stepped up and ran a really big race at Del Mar in the Del Mar handicap, but he was getting 6 pounds from United that day. Umberto Rispoli with a great ride, which was one thing, but he's going to need to step up to a whole nother level entirely in order to compete with these.
That's what the Breeders' Cup is, right? That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a bunch of really, really good horses to where some nice horses just have no shot. And so it's nothing against any of these horses that you don't think have a chance, because these are all quality animals to have been at this point. It's just, as we both mentioned and Andrew hit it, it really feels like a lot of these turf horses is from the U.S. this year are just a little overmatched. The last couple of years, I felt like we had some better opportunities. And in the Affiliated Mare Turf, I think there's at least one really good and maybe a couple. What about Channel Maker, Darin? Does he have an opportunity to steal this race?
He does. Manny Franco's got to get creative in order to do it because he's going to have to hold off some awfully nice European horses. Look, and I'll give him this. It's not – he has gotten very good the last 2 starts. And by the way, this is a horse that I've always been a fan of because I actually bet him as a 2-year-old in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. So I saw something in him back then that unfortunately cost me money. But that being said, the last 2 races are really good. They're good from all speed figures. The Beyer speed figures, 108 identical. He ran a -1 and a 1 on the Thoroughbred. He ran a 7 1/4, 7 1/4 on the Ragozin. I mean, he's right there. He runs back to those races. He's right there on the wire. The thing that I can't get past here is that beating horses like Lucario and Sadler's Joy and Aquaphobia are just different than beating horses like Magical. Maybe he's just so unbelievably sharp right now that he's just not going to let anybody buy him. It's possible. At 5-1, though, you're going to have to do that with somebody else's money.
Yeah. Looking at the last 2, they look fantastic on paper, but let's dive in. The Grade 1 Sword Dancer, if that was not a stakes race, would not have been run on the turf at Saratoga. It was a bog that day, and nobody went with Channel Maker. Nobody else showed any interest in really running that day. And when he got to 6 furlongs and 117-1, it was lights out. The Turf Classic at Belmont, yeah, that one looks better from a pace standpoint, but you have to remember it's Belmont. And that turf course can play very, very, very fast. You get allowance horses going miles at Belmont and 132 and change on that turf course. So him going 49-2 to the half and 114-2 for 6 furlongs is pretty darn slow. I don't see him getting that kind of trip in here, especially with United showing up. If one of United or Channel Maker gets that trip, they hit the board. But I think the presence of the other makes it very difficult for those horses to get the kinds of trips that they probably need. Channel Maker at 5-1, no buys for me.
I think I've played against this horse like every time he's run. Channel Maker. He's just one of those horses that I've played against every single time. And it's not even that he's a short price all the time. I just have never... and maybe 1 or 2 times that I played him, I was on the wrong side of him because every time I see him in the past performances, I get that like I don't know what to do with this. Oh God, I don't know what to do with this horse. And we get to Mogul to round out the field here. He is a lightly raced 3-year-old coming off of a big Group 1 win, going 1.5 miles. He's hard to knock. He hasn't done a ton wrong. He's in really nice form right now. Let's see. He was 8th of 10. He was inside. He was about 7 lengths off along the rail. The leader ran off that day, was about 8 to 10 off inside. He got an opening up the rail, and he exploded. It was visually very, very impressive. No knocks, proven at 1.5 miles. I just like others a tad more. I would maybe want like 6 to 7, 8 to 1-ish on him. Wouldn't be a shock to me, though.
No, I think the morning line is short, to be honest with you. I know the last race was really good. I just don't think he's beaten anything of this caliber yet. And that's just my opinion. In the Investec Derby, the Epsom Derby, he was, well beaten. Pile Driver, who's a nice horse, has certainly had his number. He beat a couple of decent horses last time out at Longchamp. But I just think the other Europeans are a step ahead of him now. That's not to say he can't step up and win, but at 4-1, I think that's short. And there's another thing that we need to look at in this Breeders' Cup, and you could kind of play this out with some of the other races. Aidan O'Brien is on an awful streak in the United States. You look up any of his numbers, I don't know how far it goes back, but there's a big goose egg that's going back for quite some time right now. So keep that in mind when betting these Breeders' Cup races and see how the Aidan O'Brien horses, the 2-year-olds and everything, how they're looking, because he's kind of gone through a rough patch in the U.S. Mogul would have to, be twice the price of 4-1 to entertain me in terms of, putting him on top.
Yeah, Mogul is a B for me. He's the last of 10 horses in this field. He's one of many talented European runners. I like the fact that he's getting better as he gets older. He had a good win 3-back going 1.5 miles. He had a win last time out going 1.5 miles in a Group 1 race. That probably wasn't a Group 1 race in all capital letters, but still, you win a Group 1 at Longchamp going a 119 time form rating. You can improve off of that with first-time Lasix here in the States, and maybe late in his 3-year-old campaign, he's starting to figure things out. I can't bet him at 4-1. He's not a top pick for me, but he will be on some wider and saver tickets simply because Europeans getting first-time Lasix can often be very, very tough to beat in these races.
DZ, you said you didn't have quite as strong of opinion in here. Who are some of the horses that you will be using in your exotics?
Sure. So, Lord North, looking for a good price on him. Hopefully somewhere in the neighborhood of 10, 12 to 1 is definitely a play for me. Obviously going to be using Magical in a big way. Those are going to be the two that I really kind of focus on, and with the addition of the filly Tarnawa. I mean, for me, those are the 3 to beat. I think there's a chance that they run 1, 2, 3 here. I'll use an American like Channel Maker defensively. I'm not going to have any U.S. horses in the top line. So for me, yeah, Magical, Lord North, Tarnawa, kind of up and down, and then spread amongst them in terms of my multi-race exotics.
Yeah, we're similar, and again, that should scare the hell out of you, Darin. Magical and Tarnawa are my two A horses, and they're probably going to be the favorite and second choice, respectively. Lord North and Mogul are my B horses. God bless America, land that I love, except in the Breeders' Cup turf. My goodness, do the Americans look overmatched here.
Fellas, I really appreciate it. We'll get back to talking some wrestling next week and recapping Money in the Bank 2011. Let us know where can we follow you along on this really big week for horse racing with Friday, Saturday Breeders' Cup coming up.
Sure. At the Track 7 on Twitter. Obviously, I'll be into it all week. I've kind of been posting some random thoughts as I go through the races. I have a lot of my work done, but I still have some more replays, and I'll take a look at the workout reports and everything. So all the way through, I'll be posting my thoughts, and then as we get to the end of the week, I'll post my kind of in-depth thoughts on each individual race and how I'm playing them and so on and so forth. So you're going to be getting all after the election is over, because we're recording this on Tuesday. You're going to be getting all Breeders' Cup all the time from me.
You're adorable. You're assuming the election will be over by the time the Breeders' Cup horses go postward. That's fantastic. Anyway, kidding aside, Twitter is at Andrew Champagne, andrewchampagne.com for a whole mess of written stuff. And the Champagne and JD YouTube show will be doing not one, but two shows this week, one for Friday, one for Saturday. And we've got some really good guests lined up. Ren Carruthers is going to be joining us to look at the races on Friday. She's one of the best 2-year-old handicappers that I know, and she has taught me so much about how to take deep dives at pedigrees and do the extra research that's necessary there. And we'll have Nick Hines in to talk about the races on Saturday. So that's up on YouTube. Just search Champagne and JD to take a look at that. There's a lot to go through, a lot of opportunities to make some money, and you only have to be right once or twice in order to make some pretty significant coins. So here's hoping that we can at least find the winner's circle a couple of times.
Best of luck, fellas. Folks, do not go anywhere. We still have lots more to discuss here on That's What G Said. Stay tuned. Andrew and Darin helping out and kicking butt like always, coming ready and prepared no matter what subject that we're talking about. In this 11th race, the Breeders' Cup Turf, I will go to the 3 as my top selection. I kind of have 2, 3, 6, 7 sort of on my top tier, and then question marks about the 10. 2, 3, 6 really, I'll throw United in on some tickets though, but Tarnawa, the filly, she's just looking for her 4th win in a row, back-to-back Group 1 wins. This would be her 3rd consecutive. Legit excuses for the poor performances, and I don't have any knocks for her at all. I'm going to make a win wager on her at anything around 6-1 or so. The number 6 will be on a lot of my tickets as well. That is Lord North. He was 3 deep last time out, mid-pack, 4 off. He angled out to get within 2, and then he just backed up. I think you can just completely toss it. It was on the soft. And prior to that, he has form that would really fit. Those races in June were unbelievable. So impressive. So good. If he's able to get back to anything close to that, he could win this race, no doubt about it. Then the 7, United. Will he be able to stalk Channel Maker? I don't know if he gets the lead ahead of him. I prefer United over Channel Maker of the 2 horses that I think will be forwardly placed in here. And then question marks about the 10. I will probably throw in on 1 or 2 tickets Mogul, but I want a little bit more of a price on this one, who's going to have to do a couple things for the first time, like deal with a tough group of older here in a ship and travel. So 3, 6, 2, 7 underneath them, question marks about the 10. We move along from the Breeders' Cup Turf to the Breeders' Cup Classic, but we have to mention one of our friends before we do. Cindy Carava, full-service realtor. She's been with That's What G Said from the very beginning. So if you need anything in the world of real estate, just mark down the name right now, even if it's going to be a year down the line or 6 months from now. Don't forget about Cindy Carava, because she's a full-service realtor. She can help you out in many different ways: selling, purchasing, leasing. She is so nice, so kind, so genuine. She's going to take all the stress away from you in what is a very, very stressful endeavor. Moving, It's something that nobody likes. And she can even help you out on the smaller scale, right? Maybe you're just looking to improve your home, upgrade your home, anything at all. She can help you find a vendor like a handyman, painter, landscaper, gardeners that she knows personally and she's used in her own home. Maybe you need help getting pre-approved for a loan. She can connect you with the lenders that she works closely with and she can highly recommend. She covers all parts of the San Gabriel Valley, parts of North San Diego County, Del Mar, Solana Beach, Rancho Santa Fe. Even if you just want to find out how much your home is worth, she can help you out with that too with a free market analysis of your home's value. Check her out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, but the easiest way to get all of her information, CindyCarava.com. CindyCarava.com. You can even find reviews about her on Yelp and Zillow. Send her an email if you have any questions, and you can get all that info at CindyCarava.com. Up next, Breeders' Cup Classic, final Breeders' Cup race of the weekend. Emily Gullikson joins us to talk about the main event. It is main event time, Breeders' Cup Saturday, the Breeders' Cup Classic. We're going to be heading over to Keeneland for race number 12, and joining me to discuss the field. You hear her quite often here on That's What G Said. You see her on social media, Optics EQ, stuff for Twin Spires, covering all sorts of races. Emily Gullikson. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, really excited for Breeders' Cup. I think this is just an awesome 2 days of racing. I mean, it always is, but like this year, the way the races came up, they're just, horse player friendly for people that like to bet. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm really pumped, and we've got an interesting, really interesting classic, like a lot of different ways we can go. And so I think the best thing we can do is we'll just kind of start inside to outside and go through every contender. And I mean, we have to mention that, Bob Baffert has a pretty strong hand in here. I mean, no surprise in that, but he's going to be really, really live. And just the overall picture of that is something that makes me a little curious, because you would think Authentic and Maximum Security both want to be forwardly placed. That's their best way of going. And when they're both Bafferts, I wouldn't necessarily picture them battling each other. But, I mean, this is the Breeders' Cup Classic. These are two different horses where that is their best chance to win. Something sort of got to give.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to – I know it's tough, especially when you have a Bob Baffert, who's just a big name, right? And that just – can sometimes kind of cloud your vision, right? And if you just looked at it, like if you just eliminated the trainers' names and you handicapped it straight up, you'd almost X those horses out, right? Because they kind of cancel each other out in terms of running style. And I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't do that, right?
Yep.
Unless you're expecting for some reason one of them to do something totally different and then just like not compete, which would be like, we should have an investigation.
Yeah. No, seriously.
But, I mean, those are things that, like, you just, when you're handicapping, like, you have to just do this. This kind of ran into play. I got asked about this a couple weeks ago for the Breeder Stakes up at Woodbine because, we had the Canadian Triple Crown on the line, and Josie Carroll had the favorite, Mighty Heart, and I liked Belichick, who I liked going into gotta get my name's facing Queen's Plate.
Second,
and it was like, well, if they have this, why would they enter the horse? It's like, I don't care. Like, I can't be bothered by who's doing what. It's just like, I'm handicapping the horses the way the race comes out. And so I think people should take that approach and not just try to overthink the things that are out of your control.
Yep, I completely agree on that. And let's go inside outside with Tacitus. Poor Tacitus. He looked like he had turned the corner in that Suburban win. It was like, he finally is going to beat up on some horses that he's better than. He's going to put it all together. The blinkers are on now. And, I mean, you could not draw up two better races for him to get grade 1 wins in small fields where he was heavily favored in the Woodward. He was stalking. Okay, maybe we want to make the excuse that he just couldn't get by a Global Campaign who was loose on the lead. That's fine. Well, then the next time he gets loose on the lead, he's the best horse in the race. He's clear, and he just stops. So now Mott has said we don't want him on the lead. That's fine. He was a hanger before, and then he stopped last time out. I can't really get there with Tacitus anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can get there from the perspective. I think that for all the points that you mentioned, he's just not a horse that is reliable, right?
Yep.
And the morning line is 20-1. I think it'll probably be half of that and could be even shorter. He's just a horse that people like. Sometimes it's like you can't really make excuses for those trips, but sometimes they're not ideal trips for horses. And those compact fields, those short fields, sometimes horses just don't run well in them. I think there's a case of that to be made in the Distaff as well, with Point of Honor. But anyway, trying to stay on point here. For Tacitus, I mean, he could just find kind of the right trip in this race, right, where he's able to save ground. He is a plotter.
He's not going to be on the lead here, right? So we're not going to worry about that. At the most, he's going to be fourth early.
Right. So he just, he's able to save ground. He lets those horses, just run in front of him. The race is slowing late, and he just grinds along and gets the win. And that's a scenario that makes him playable. Is he, at first I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to land on him. And then, I sort of went elsewhere, but he's still a horse that's usable just because I could see that scenario playing out.
I did similar because I was and when you stack him up with numbers and figures and you just kind of look at his trip, he feels like he's going to trip out. So I'm completely fine with him in 2, 3, 4 spots. And I'll probably even flop him in on a pick 4 or pick 5 in one. But in the middle of the tickets, especially if he is, anything around 10 or over is fair. That's probably where he should be with this group. Let's get to Tiz the Law, who was so good really forever. His poor performance in the Kentucky Derby, he just couldn't get by Authentic. I was impressed with Authentic that day. And maybe the thing with Tiz the Law is the spacing between races. You look at every race he had ever run before the Kentucky Derby, there was about a 6-week gap. And he came back in the Kentucky Derby. It was a month, not even a month. And he didn't really have that same late punch. Was it because he ran into a good horse? There were a couple different factors. Now he's going to have to face older, but he does have a little time. He's fresh. He's a nice horse. He's tough to knock what he's done this year, but there are some legitimate older horses here he's going to have to deal with, and he's also going to have to deal with the horse who beat him last time out.
Right. Yeah. That was the timing for me. Just coming off a top effort on less than 30 days rest is what made him vulnerable in the Kentucky Derby. And I've been pretty well documented in stating that, and I stand by it. Just watching him on the track, and then just sort of the overall visuals. But he's kind of peaked, right? And that's kind of the concern. I think timing and spacing wise, I wanted to, even before the entries came out, wanted to like him just because it was like we know that race, why he ran well. But just sort of looking at this field, it's hard to see a trip for him. He doesn't like to be inside of horses. That's where he's going to be again. He's another horse. He's not quick enough to run with those outside 3. So he's going to kind of have to use. He's going to get stuck behind horses. Where I can see Tacitus working a trip, I have a much harder time seeing a trip for Tiz the Law, even though I could probably say he's a horse that maybe is better and certainly likes to win more. But it's hard to get there just in terms of trip. And 3-1 is just not enough meat on the bone. Yeah,
I agree. Trip and price. It's funny that you said that. When the pre-entries and stuff are coming out and just envisioning how this race was going to unfold in my head, I'm thinking, Tiz the Law is probably going to get a good trip and he feels like he's going to be fresher. And then when you look at it on paper, he's either going to be having to do too much early and getting caught up with those other horses, and that's going to be a little bit out of his game, or he's going to be like 5 or 6 lengths behind, which we haven't really seen him do either, and that's going to be out of his game. And can he win with either one of those trips? Sure. But do I want to take him at 5-2 winning with one of those trips? No, thank you.
Yeah. Kind of a toss, unfortunately, in here.
Yeah. By my standards he's had a really good year too. He's just sort of similar to what I was thinking with Tiz Law. Where is he going to be in this race? Because he's able to get great trips when they're going slow and just sit nicely in the clear, and then he wins those races. He's not second or third here though, right? He's got to be more like 5th or 6th.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of in a tough spot in terms of trip. I think, Saez is going to be aggressive. He's going to try to put him in the race, so probably at the first call, he's going to look like he's in a good spot. But if they are going fast, that's going to be where it gets to him, right? Just being unable to keep up with those horses at that pace. So again, another horse that's probably just going to get, kind of swallowed by the pace of the race, not able to get his trip. And distance-wise, I know he's been running shorter. I think it's possible for him to get the 10, but it would have to be under just the right scenario, and I'm not sure this is it. But again, another horse like I really wanted to land on and make a case for. I had to just look at the data and go, can't do it.
Yeah, it just with speeds, he just doesn't feel like he's going to get that cozy trip that he works that trip out for himself because he's a good gate horse too. He breaks really well, and then he just can kind of settle in nicely. But they're going to be going a couple lengths quicker than he's been used to going early on. I mean, he was a couple lengths behind Improbable when they ran, and Improbable has a similar running style as he does. Just to give you an idea. So if he's a couple lengths behind, if he's behind Improbable again, is he going to be able to go past? I don't know. Like you said, maybe Saez can get a little more aggressive and have him in a good spot, but I still think that'll take a little too much out of him early. And I mean, I'm going to be using Tom Z Tot on probably all of my tickets and maybe one or two others in here. It's because if he is over 4-1, like he's 5-1 or so, he has the one bad race where he has a legitimate excuse. Prior to that, he was the best older horse in training for most of this year, for that 3 or 4 race streak that he put together. Improbable is super good, and I have no knocks on Improbable and what he's blossomed into. But if you just took the Whitney out, he was favored over Improbable. He had a legitimate excuse that day. I don't think he should be anything over 4-1 or so. If he is, I'm going to jump in on Tom.
Yeah, no, it's funny because the other horses, it was like I went in trying to make a case for them, and I went into Tom Zatot trying to beat him.
I've never liked him really either. Like, I've never played him. I feel similar, yeah.
I go with this race, and I'm like, oh, he's my top pick. Like, it's just like it looks like the race is going to set up for him. He's in good form. And Alstall's used this pattern before. It's kind of sneaky, but if you go back to last year, when he ran at Saratoga, he ran 2 races at Saratoga, the Outer and the Woodward, and then he was rested and he came back in the Fayette in late October, and it's pretty much the same pattern where he has those 2 races, the June 27th race, the August 1st race, and then he comes back kind of in this like late season Keeneland race. So it's like from a trainer standpoint, it's like he knows how to get him ready for this type of race. There's just a lot to like, and going through the field where it's like I have knocks on these other horses. He's going to get a good trip. He's in form. Distance wise, he hasn't been tested at it, which gives me a little bit of reservation, but I think there's going to be value there to kind of compensate for that 1 mild, just sort of unknown.
We move to the number 5, Title Ready, and this is Dallas Stewart loves doing this kind of thing. He loves having a big price and a big race and shocking the world with a huge upset. Can Title Ready be another one of those horses for Dallas Stewart?
I don't think so. I mean, he's pretty below. I mean, it's hard to find any race that kind of stacks up with this field. He struggled when he was with Asmussen in the grade 3 level. Asmussen's a good trainer. Dallas Stewart, they're both good trainers, but I feel like Title Ready, it's like he is who he is at this point. He's just not quite on the level. I think best case scenario for him to be running underneath, which is another thing that Dallas Stewart likes to do, but I have a hard time, putting him any further than that.
We move along from Title. Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you too. I think he just feels a little bit overmatched in here. Higher Power, the next one. He's got the big win on the page, the Pacific Classic that you look at, but he's been defeated by Maximum Security and Improbable in the last few. When you look at some of the horses that he's been keeping company with prior to that, they're okay. Vino Rosso last year, and Higher Power was only 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year. He has no problem going 1.25 miles. Just another one where I don't think he wants to be 7 or 8 lengths off of it. He's not. I mean, he's got a little more tactical speed than you think he does. Where do you see him in here? Does he have a shot?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of too bad because the last couple times he wasn't ridden well in the San Diego or in the Pacific Classic. Just either like handling rise just wasn't right for the race shape. Looked like he would kind of get something out of the San Diego, and then Pacific Classic just kind of moved off the inside early, wanted to like avoid kickback, just didn't have the right pace. But then, yeah, you kind of drop, like, what kind of trip does he want in here? Well, he wants to be forwardly placed. Well, he had that opportunity in the races that he should have done that, and he didn't. Maybe he couldn't. And I don't know if he can get that here. But you're right. I mean, he has races that can win. He's just so inconsistent with bringing those races, and it has to be, it has to kind of be the perfect trip. He got the perfect trip in the Pacific Classic last year. Really weak field. You know, in the Gold Cup, he ran fine. That race probably has him competitive here. You know, just if you're against the favorites, you can make a case that you're going to spread just because, you know, maybe there's chaos. And that's about like kind of where I get with him. It's hard for me to make a real case for him, but being against the others, I could kind of see him sneaking in.
Yeah, I feel the same way. There's something like I'm not ready to completely dismiss him. I'm waiting for him to come up with another big effort at some point. And if he's and I want to be on board if he is 20-1 when he has that effort, you know.
Yeah, no, I think he'll legitimately be 20-1 in here. It's like Tacitus, I don't think so. Even Global Campaign, I could see him taking money in here, and then Higher Power. Because it's hard to make a case for him, right? To have that type of race, and just maybe this is, you know, just sort of the right spot that he jumps up in. You know, so again, yeah, like use him for spread, but he should be every bit of that morning line.
You just mentioned Global Campaign. He's right next door. That is the number 7. And he's a horse who he teased us with a lot of talent early on in his career. And then after the Jim Dandy in 2019, he finished 3rd. He was kind of like a forgotten about horse. You know, you just kind of good early on, and then he's out of sight, out of mind. He comes back in 2020, and he wins in his first start off the bench. And then he has a brutal trip at Churchill Downs. You can just put a line right through it. He had a bad start, and he was in trouble. He just never had a shot that day. So you make that excuse. He's 3 for 3 in his other 3 starts so far this year. I just, from the shape of the race, he doesn't feel as quick as Authentic. He doesn't feel as quick as Maximum Security. Can he carve in a spot right behind them? Maybe he can do that. He's shown that he can sit just behind. It feels like there's still at least some upside with him because he's kind of lightly raced, and it feels like he's starting to figure it out.
Yeah, that would be the case with him, right? He's going to have to show a different dimension than his wins. I mean, he was able to kind of get the bias a little bit at Monmouth, and then the easy loop last out at Saratoga. So, yeah, in terms of trip, you know, he's going to have to compete with those other horses. But I agree. I mean, he kind of presented as maybe he would be a one-turn type horse, but maybe the maturity and just kind of getting some experience. Maybe, you know, having those races in his favor last time out, you know, that kind of puts him over the top. So the case with him is just like, you know, you have a lightly raced kind of improving type horse. But it's hard to just see what kind of trip he's going to get in here with those horses that are drawn outside. He's going to have to just kind of go and get kind of caught up with them. So it's tough to see that path. But I wouldn't fault anybody that wants to get creative with Global Campaign.
What I really like about Improbable as we move on to him, and just as a horse in general, not necessarily as I'm going to go bet him at, you know, if he's 9-5 in this race, but what he's done this year is that some of the questions that we've just raised about horses like, you know, By My Standards or Higher Power or, where Tis the Law even, like, where are they going to be? You know, they're going to have to overcome something that we haven't seen them overcome yet. So how short of a price do we want to accept on that? What's nice about Improbable is, you know, he was the horse who, okay, how far does he really want to go? Okay, can he win when he's not getting a most perfect trip where he's sitting just second stalking? In his last start, the race set up perfect for him in that there was a lot of speed in front of him, but I liked seeing that he could be 5-6 lengths off of it and close and make up ground and do it very easily. It didn't seem like there was any issue with him. He just is a nice animal right now. He is matured and grown into a damn good horse. And this is one of the things that I think that bothers a lot of horse racing fans, in that, you know, a lot of times horses like this get retired at the end of their 3-year-old season and they don't come back at 4, and we don't see them do what Improbable has done so far this year. He's been really, really good. I don't have very many knocks on him.
Yeah, no, I think he's as legit a favorite for all those reasons, right? I mean, he's been class, he's been speed, he's been able to show those dimensions. He should get a great trip in here. I mean, part of it was, coming from off the pace, he was able to just kind of have a free trip. But he might get that here, right? If you have all those horses that kind of are congested chasing the pace, he might just get a free trip and be able to kind of make that move like he did in the Awesome again. I think coming into this race, he's really hard to have a fault in. And so he is, he's a legitimate favorite, and he's just a horse that, you have to use. Not necessarily one I'm excited to make a win bet on, but I'm certainly not leaving him off any tickets to close out the day.
Completely agree. And I guess it's kind of funny where you've got the Bafferts all lined up right next to each other, right? 8, 9, and 10, the 3 drawn to the outside. So you've got Authentic, and then you've got the 2 who look like they're going to be quicker. And I will say these horses are kind of funny to me because I've gained a lot of respect for both of them. They're horses that I generally was playing against early on in their careers, and they sort of made me believers. I think you and I spoke about Authentic the day that he lost the Santa Anita Derby. We were high on Honor IP. We didn't really think that he was going to be a mile and a quarter or even a mile and an eighth horse at that time. He looked like on paper he wasn't going to get the lead. He didn't, and he didn't win. He's definitely started training better, and then after that Haskell, and between the Haskell and the Derby, I was really impressed with what he did in the Derby, and then I was really impressed with him to come back in the Preakness and battle with Skydiver all the way through. I respect the hell out of him. I just don't like the way this race shapes up with Maximum Security right next door. He's going to be facing Older for the first time. I don't same type of thing. I don't know if he's going to be able to pass a horse or if he's a length behind them, and maybe Maximum Security sits just off him and lets him go. But where do you see them shaping up? They're side by side, and they need that same type of trip. So I think both of them just have to go out and run their race. And again, just almost, I know it's weird to say, but pretend they're not stablemates, right? Especially in a big race like this. This is what you go for all year. If they can't each be handled with their best opportunity to win, then what are we doing here,
Yeah, exactly. And it's Baffert has the other horse that can scoop them both up, if it's necessary. So, I think both of them are going to try to establish a position right off the bat. I don't think they necessarily want to get into a but I have a hard time seeing a scenario that they're going to let one of the other ones go, and they almost certainly can't because of Global Campaign being in the race. So Global Campaign being inside of them, he's going to go. So it's both those horses kind of just have to fall into their own race. Are they going to get a trip from there is sort of the question. Are they going to kind of prevail as best of the speed type horses? They're good in their own right, but again, I think that they've been able to show grit, but also had the right paces in order to do it. And I'm not sold on either of them in here. They're less likely to be uses for me, but again, they're also 2 horses that could beat me at the same time, and I'm willing to kind of accept that going in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Maximum Security too. He's honest, and just to mention, I do feel bad for this horse in that he's had to deal with a lot. This is a horse who was a 16 claimer. He was in the service barn. We, all the stuff that we've found out afterwards, who knows what kind of drugs and stuff this horse had pumping through his body. He went over to Saudi. He had the Kentucky Derby win in DQ. He traveled over to Saudi, won that race. Then he's moved into the Baffert barn. He's had, and then could you imagine, Emily, talk about 2 completely different as far as how they train their horses, from going from Service to Baffert, just a different, in the mornings, Service would just have his horses crawl and do absolutely nothing, really long kind of stamina building works, where you got the really quick type works from Baffert. This is a horse who is just, overall, I really respect him as an animal, because he has had a hell of a lot thrown at him.
Yeah, no, you've kind of made me a fan just by that explanation. Honestly. Yeah, he is. You're right. For all those reasons, there's nothing more I can add.
Yeah, and he's kind of quirky. He's been that way in the mornings. Apparently, he's working better now, and the outside draw is much better for him than the inside draw. He can press a little bit, and he's shown that he can, and he will fight you a little bit. I just don't. I don't really like him coming into this spot. I would so much prefer Improbable of the Bafferts, especially with the way this race shapes up. So I think we might be in a little bit of trouble, Emily, because the way that I've got this race stacked in order, I had it 4-8-1.
I'm right with you.
Yeah, I think we see it very similarly. And if Tom's D Tot is like over 4-1, I think that's a nice fair price on a horse who has been one of the top, if not the top older horse for a lot of this year. Really no knocks on Improbable whatsoever. And I do like Tacitus to, hey, in a race where wouldn't it be a very Tacitus and a very 2020 thing for him to win the Breeders' Cup Classic after losing those 2 races where he was like odds on in small fields and didn't win?
Yeah, I think that narrative is already being written like right now.
It really is. So a really good Breeders' Cup Classic, and you said it, and honestly, I'm not going to BS you, and you're not going to BS the people out there. Like, we'll say when we've handicapped enough Southern California races and dates to like, oh, this is not a good card, this is not a good race, we're not going to tell you. These are 2 really good days. Like, I like almost all of these Breeders' Cup races. There's usually a few where I kind of go, I don't like that race and roll my eyes. I was very, very intrigued in almost all of them. Some vulnerable favorites, some really nice stars. It's the perfect combination of what you want with the championship races.
Oh, absolutely. I feel the same way. I was not as thrilled about Breeders' Cup last year, to be perfectly honest.
No.
This year is totally different. I like every race, even the undercard races, I think are good on both days. So I'm ready to just kind of get into it. Only have to wait a couple more days.
Let the folks out there, again, know where can we follow you on social media and where can we see some of your work this week?
Yeah, so on social media, my personal Twitter at EmilyOpticsEQ, and then, of course, OpticsEQ Twitter handle itself, and OpticsEQ.com. We have a Breeders' Cup special, which gives you access to optics, all the tracks that we run during those, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as well as the analysis. We've had, our team go through and do and analyze all the Breeders' Cup races for the day. I also have full card selections over at Brisnet. There's spotlight selections if you go under picks, and you'll see my name for both days. And I worked on that project. A lot of work went into it. It's really good, and I'm pretty proud of it. So yeah, it's good racing, and pick up the optic. All of it's good. It's really good information for playing the races this weekend.
And I got to give you a little pat on the back too, in that every time you're on, you are on the very short list of people that I get asked about. When is she coming back? When are you going to have Emily come back and talk a big races with you? Is she going to come back on and talk this weekend? So I have. Thank you to Emily Gullikson from Optics EQ for joining us to talk Breeders' Cup Classic. And yeah, we feel pretty similar. It's going to be 4-8 in all the exotics for me. Tom's D Tot and Improbable. And I think Tom's D Tot is going to get bet a little bit. I think he'll probably be 4-1 or so. I'm seeing a lot of buzz about him out on social media. But you got to remember, in this race, the Baffert horses are all going to take money. So it's not like Tom's D Tot is going to be the horse who just takes a bunch of money and nobody else does. Maximum Security is going to take money. He always does. Authentic is your Derby winner. He's going to take some money. And Improbable is the most likely winner of the race. He's the most deserving favorite in the race. He's going to take money. So if Tom's D Tot is 7-2, it wouldn't shock me. If he's 4-1, anything over 7-2, I'll bet him to win. And he's still a must-use in all of your exotics, but don't be surprised if he's a little shorter than his morning line. I don't know how much. 'Tis the law. Don't forget about him. He's going to take, money also. Maybe he floats up. Maybe it's an instance where we have a bunch of 4-1 shots, like Improbable at 2-1, and then, a couple 4 or 5-1 shots. But Tom is on all my tickets. Improbable is on all my tickets. Tacitus is going to be on some of my tickets, as I was talking about with Emily. I've never trusted him. He's not a horse who I'd bet to win at short prices, but in this situation where he's not the horse to beat, where he might just be able to save ground inside and get a good trip, I wouldn't mind having him to close out a pick 4 or pick 5. So 4-8-1 on some tickets, and then, what are you going to do with the Bafferts? I'd be more inclined to use 'Tis the Law I guess it just comes down to price. Like, 'Tis the Law, Maximum Security, Authentic, they're all going to be shorter than I want. And, they could beat me, but they obviously all have an opportunity to win. It's just, you can't use them all in each and every race, all the logicals, and I much prefer Improbable and Tom's D Tot. That's the Breeders' Cup Classic. So we are done with the Breeders' Cup. So let's give a little recap of what we're looking at on Saturday. So you can play a pick 5 in race number 1 on Saturday, which I talked a little bit about on the part 1 show. And Nashville is the horse in race 1 that will probably be a very popular single. So I'll play a pick 5 where I'll do that. I'll single and then I'll spread out a little bit. So pick 5, 1 with 3, 4, 7, 10, with 4, 5, 6, with 1, 3, 7, 9, with 1, 3, 7, 10, 12. That's in the first race on Saturday. You can play a pick 4 that starts in the Breeders' Cup races in race number 4. You can play pick 5s that begin in race number 8. So I'm not going to give you as many exact tickets because there's so much going on. You heard how every race I like horses, how I stack them up. But those are things I'll probably be looking at playing in the 4th race, a pick 4. That'll take you through races 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Breeders' Cup. But a lot of my focus will be on that late pick 5 that starts in race number 8 and takes you from races 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And begins with the sprint. Some of the horses I'd be looking at in the sprint, I'll be singling Diamond Oops on one ticket. We'll be using Yao Pawn along with Diamond Oops. Probably throw Frenzy Fire on a ticket. Possibly Frank's Rocket. But no doubt I'll have one ticket where I'm singling Diamond Oops right away, and 10, 11 are my strong opinion in that one. In race number 9, it'll be a lot of 2, 4s, and 6s in there. That's the race where I like Kamiko quite a bit. In race number 10, 5, 10s, those are the, very logical race with Swiss Skydiver, with Monomoy Girl. I'm going to throw the 1 CC in. I'll probably play another ticket where I go even a little deeper, 1, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. In race number 11, which is the Turf, 2, 3, 6, 7 will be on most tickets with Tornawa as the top selection to close things out. Lots of 4s and 8s. Tom's the Tot, Improbable. I'll throw Tacitus on a few. I'll try to have one ticket set up where I've got all in the final race. If my opinions in the others are correct, I can get, if I can get a Diamond Oops and maybe a Kamiko and a Swiss Skydiver home, and set yourself up to have all in the last race in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So one more time, 4th race, Filly and Mare Sprint. I'm going to be using Come Dancing and Speech in all of my exotics. In the 5th race, the Turf Sprint, I'll be using Bombard in all exotics and probably playing a few bucks to win, along with some others, but Bombard is the real key horse for me in that race. The 6th race, the Dirt Mile, it's very wide open, but Pirate's Punch is one I want to make sure to mention for you to throw into some of your exotics. The 7th race for me, Filly and Mare Turf, it's the number 7, Terrabellum. In the 8th race, the Sprint, Diamond Oops, number 11, I will single in a couple different spots. Very, very logical. In the 9th race, the Mile, the number 2, Kamiko. In the 10th race, the Distaff, it's Swiss Skydiver and Monomoy Gal. I'll kind of put CC in a lot of exotics with them, but it's Swiss Skydiver, it's Monomoy Gal. In the 11th, the number 3, Tarnawa, that's the Turf. And in the 12th race, the Classic, for me, it's Tom's D Tot, and it's Improbable that I'll be using in all the exotics there. Breeders' Cup Saturday. We have finished with the Breeders' Cup analysis here on That's What G Said, but we are not finished with all of the analysis because it is NFL Week 9 already. Can you believe that? We're coming up on Week 9 of the NFL. And we're going to go game by game, starting with the Thursday night game with Erik, eToff 21 Sports. Before we do, I want to talk a little bit about Thrive Fantasy because we're talking about the NFL. I'm sure a lot of you who are listening are fans of wagering, fantasy sports, daily fantasy. That's what the Thrive Fantasy app is. It is a daily fantasy app that is built around prop bets. And when you use the promo code GINO, you can get an instant bonus credit of up to $50 based on your deposit. So if you deposit at least 20, you'll get 20. If you deposit 30, you'll get 30. So anything between 20 and 50 up to 50. So why not deposit 50, get a $50 bonus right back? You'll have $100 in there to mess around with. So what this is you're playing in contests, against other people. They have large contests weekly. You can play in contests for as little as $1 entry fee or anything up to $1,000 entry fee where you're playing against others in head-to-head competitions. They have free rolls a lot of the time. Football, basketball, baseball, golf, esports, all options for you at Thrive Fantasy. NFL, they've got Thursday standalone contests. They've got Sunday contests that are the big ones. And then they've got Monday night contests when the Monday night games are playing. So an example, this weekend, their big contest is the Week 9 NFL $25 entry fee, $12,500 in prizes. And the first place prize is $2,700, $2,750. They pay out to the top 130 finishers. And there's only it's a maxed entry of 550. You're not playing against thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions. You have a legitimate chance to win these contests when you have researched and selected a really good lineup. You're going to be picking 10 out of 20 options for props, and you're going to be picking over and under, right? Deshaun Watson, 280 yards passing, over or under. That's what you're going to be picking. If you get over, it'll have 100 points assigned. If you go under, it'll have 80 or 90 assigned, and that's how you build your lineup, picking 10 of their 20 available props. You put them all together, and then whatever max points that you have, that's how it's scored. Go right now, download that app, Thrive Fantasy. Use the promo code Gino. Put $50 in right now. Give it a try. You'll get an instant $50 bonus credit, and you can test it out. I play in these contests each and every weekend. I always like to try a new site out before I'm going to share it with all of you. So I've played in these things for a couple months. I've won some contests. I've withdrew money. I always like to make sure when you're depositing money and withdrawing money that everything's on the up and up. They are awesome over at Thrive Fantasy. Don't forget about that promo code GINO. It'll get you an instant bonus credit of up to $50 with a $50 deposit. Week 9 NFL with Erik. Here we go, game by game. Really appreciate our good buddy Erik joining us to talk about NFL Week 9 slate coming up because, Erik, we're recording this one on Wednesday a little bit earlier than normal, so it's a little tougher because we just have a little less information out from the week as far as injuries, things like that, as most weeks, but I appreciate you being flexible. We got the Breeders' Cup shows coming out this week, so I wanted to get this one out a little bit earlier. How's everything been going, buddy?
I mean, pretty good. Kind of fighting back the tears because I just got the alert that Stafford is on the COVID list.
Oh,
so
no.
It's gonna be a little another long year in Detroit, but battling through it.
Oh no. So let's get into the week, and we can actually mention the Thursday night game. Normally when we record Thursday, it's too late, but this one will come out on Thursday, so we can talk a little bit about that game. It is Green Bay, and I think it's Green Bay at San Francisco. Over under in this game is 50. Is it still around 5.5 there? Green Bay on the road?
Oh yeah, it's been tinkering back from 5 and 5.5. I mean, to me, the way I look at this game is Green Bay is averaging 32.8 points a game. San Francisco is averaging giving up 19.4. San Francisco's defense going to be able to contain Green Bay, which I think they will. Everyone's making a big deal out of Garoppolo and Kittle being gone. As the Vikings showed last week, Green Bay can't stop the run. I'm going to be invested on the best number I can get from San Francisco because regardless of who's playing quarterback, San Francisco is going to run the ball. That's their offense. It's a run first team. And Hasty has showed that he's an explosive back. I love San Francisco, and I love the inflated number I'm going to get with them.
Yeah, I don't like the Green Bay side here at all. And I might be willing to dip in. I'm seeing even some 6s now up on the board. And if this floats up even to a 6.5 like before, I would absolutely jump in. And 6 is fine with me, probably on the San Francisco side. I agree. And San Francisco too is funny. Like they're a really well coached team. They've looked bad a couple times this year because in those games everything went wrong for them. I sort of trust them to play well in a spot like this. I'm with you. Definitely more on the San Francisco side. Total in this game is 49.5, 50, right around.
Plus, it's a revenge spot from last year's playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
So I love that scenario anytime I can get it. And plus, Green Bay, like I have a list of teams I feel that are overvalued, and Green Bay is on the list
because their
really
defense is just bad.
Team.
You can't be a really top tier team and just have it as horrendous of a defense as they have. You can have a defense that allows points, but you have to be able to make plays and make big stops, and they don't do that a whole heck of a lot. So this is going to be an interesting spot because they kind of had their Green Bay. They got their butts kicked a couple times recently. This is sort of like what's happened when they get punched in the mouth and they don't really punch it back. I feel like they beat up on teams when everything goes their way, and they're sort of kind of like a front running team. So we'll see if they get punched a little bit by San Fran, if they can punch back this week. Your poor Lions now. You just mentioned that Stafford is on the COVID list, so I'd imagine this game that opened up at Atlanta -2 and it was up to -4. I think right now it's still around 3.5 or no, excuse me, it's still around 4, but it's probably going to go up even more now with no Stafford.
Oh, I know. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. Me and the people that are part of my betting service, we already locked in the Lions because I love the Lions.
I did too.
Yeah.
I was going to they were going to be one of my plays, especially with the way that it was moving away from them. Like you said, I just thought things went well for Minnesota last week, and I'm not that high on Green Bay, so it kind of was the two games were sort of related.
And something also to remember is the Lions traded for Everson Griffin, and he had all those years in the Zimmerman defense, so he's going to know everything that's going on. That's like a whole layer that everyone seemed to have forgotten. Stafford against that young secondary. I mean, the number is just going to get inflated. But I will say this, the Lions do actually have a capable backup. So I believe Chase Daniels is their backup, who's showing he's capable. He's a capable backup. If this number gets inflated, like if I can get a touchdown or more, which, I mean, you probably could, I'm going to invest in it because the Lions have last week it was the first rated PFF line against the run. I'm sure after their performance with the Colts, it went down. I haven't looked at the rankings for this week, but they can still run the football. Their line is good running. And the secondary for the Vikings isn't that good. They're still young and inexperienced. Vikings have no pass rush. The value is going to be on Detroit in this game.
Hands down. And in both of the first two games that we talked about, especially if they're missing the QBs, because people really jump when a QB's missing. And hey, a lot of times, right, they're jumping on the right side, but they're jumping on a side where they've given away so many points that the value is just not there whatsoever.
Yep.
And that's the way we have to play. We have to be when you're playing week in and week out over and over, and you're playing more than just recreationally for fun, you have to be wary of the numbers. You just cannot take bad numbers because you like a team that way. You just can't have that approach. If you get it in your head and you start doing that, you're going to be in some trouble there.
Number and situation. Those are my top two rules. Number and situation. And I mean, we all have rules as gamblers, and I'm kicking myself in the ass because one of my rules is never lay points on the road, and like an idiot, I took the Rams last week, and I lost.
That's what's great to say that, and that's what
broke my rule.
We do that, and then you remind yourself again. Okay, hey, there's a reason why I don't like to do that. That's one of my things. I'm just not going to do that. And we move to this Falcons Broncos game where looks like it's Falcons -4. I think there's some 3.5s out there. They are playing the Broncos. The Broncos, who I think I saw a stat somewhere that said the deficit they came back from late in that game against the Chargers. There have only been 8 out of the last 840 teams to come back from a similar late deficit. And what's funny is of those 8 teams, 3 of them did it against the Chargers. It just feels like that they're just one of those teams. Denver was like insane in the fourth quarter. Locke was insane. He was dancing afterwards. He's a goofy guy, but he's kind of funny. I kind of like watching him when he celebrates afterwards. This might be a bad spot. I don't know how you feel. This might be a bad spot for Denver because they just came back and people saw them with that big win. You might be getting a little bit of value on Atlanta. I don't love Atlanta, but I guess I'd prefer the Atlanta spot in here at like 3.5 or 4.
I love the Broncos in this spot.
Okay, cool.
One of the plays I set out just because I personally look at it a couple of factors. Number one, with how bad the Falcons defense is, they should never be laying this big of a number.
Yes.
Their defense, especially in the secondary, is so bad. They're going to allow teams to get back in, and you can get a backdoor cover. That's number one. Number two, I think of all the young quarterbacks in the league, I think Drew Lock in terms of arm talent, and I don't like his moxie of like whatever. That's kind of the guy I want. I want a guy who doesn't care, who's going to sling the ball around, be arrogant and confident. That's who I want as my quarterback.
He likes his guy. Like
yeah.
It's funny. I want to go play with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, as when I watch him, I go, man, he was walking back in the tunnel and he was like, man, that offensive line, how about those playmakers? We're like the youngest team and we're driving. I was like, man, that's cool. I got excited watching him after the game. I completely agree with you. He's another one who, like, he feels like how I want Baker Mayfield to be, like his attitude.
And the thing with him, though, is I see improvement, and the best thing as an athlete can have is a short-term memory, and he has that. He gave 2 shits. He looked like dog piss in that first half.
Terrible the first quarters.
And he had the attitude, hey, we're going to come back, and we're going to win this game. He steps in, he drives his hips, and he throws the ball. I know the metrics, like, say he's not going to be look good in the long run, but everything I see, I'm invested in this kid. Plus, also, everyone has to remember, and I believe I said this when I was on when we did our seasonal preview, the thing that's going to hurt the Broncos is Locke not having Shermer there for a training camp. Now Locke has seen the Shermer system now for 8 weeks. And now he kind of has the system. Yeah. So now he kind of has everything going. So now for the second half of the year, we're going to actually see if this Broncos team is as good as everyone thinks it is, because now they have the reps with the Shermer system. And their defense, Fangio's defense plays. And it'll be able to control Ryan. Falcons maybe out with Ridley. Ridley has that foot injury that no one seems to be talking about. And their offensive line is not that good. Chubb is an insane pass rusher. I really like the Broncos.
Cool. In a game I didn't have as strong of opinion. I was leaning more Atlanta. You've kind of sold me the other way. And the Denver was a team that I was looking into to playing in a lot of spots, I think, the second half of the season, because you mentioned they have a strong defense. You know they're going to always come out and give you a solid effort defensively. If Locke is there, I trust that they can at least move the ball a little bit. And you know, they just need their playmakers. They need Gordon and Lindsey to be out there. They need their receivers to be out there. If they're banged up a little bit, they're not deep enough to have enough playmakers to go up and down the field. But when they're right, when they're healthy, this is a team that I thought was going to be close to a playoff team, you know, preseason as a healthy team. If they start to get their pieces back together, there's nobody in this league this year that just looks that unbeatable, Erik.
I look at it like there's a lot of bad teams this year. There's not one team where I'm like, this team's winning it all. There's a lot of bad teams this year, in my opinion.
Yep, completely agree. We move along to a very good team, although this is a very good team that doesn't have a great defense yet. Their defense stepped up in a game that they needed to against San Francisco in a big game and made some plays, and a game which San Francisco had some injuries to deal with, but that was what Seattle kind of had to do in a big game, show that they can at least make some plays on the defensive end, and Wilson is just incredible. The Bills, after their really good offensive start to the year, their offense has come back to life the last couple weeks. They got a gift last week when Cam fumbled the ball. That should have at least been a game that was going to overtime. The Patriots could have had an opportunity to win that game late had he not fumbled the ball. And I liked Buffalo coming into the year. I just was expecting so much more from their defense. Talk about two teams here that defense have been very lackluster through most of the year.
For me, right now, the last time I looked, Seattle was laying 2.5. With that being said, I'm not as high in the Bills as you are. I don't like their defense. They can't stop the run. They have some injuries in the back four, which against DK, Lockett, and all those weapons and Russell Wilson is really hard to trust. And plus, it's below the key number of 3, so there's no way I can be on either side in this game. For me, Seattle, I really am hesitant ever laying points with them because their defense is so bad, especially without Jamal Adams.
Completely agree.
Teams can get backdoored. If Seattle comes out and they get out to a quick 7-0, 10-0 lead, and I can get a live bet on the Bills at a 7 or a 4 or a 5, somewhere in that vicinity, I'll be interested in it. But pre-flop, gun to my head, it would only be the over, and I'm at this point, it is 3 points higher than when it opened. So key numbers and value gone on both sides.
It's so funny that you said that about Seattle. I feel the same way. Like, I love taking Seattle, and it's there are just a couple teams that you feel that way with. Like, I never want to be laying a bunch with Seattle, like more than a field goal, and even really points in general. I love playing them when they're a dog. I love playing them when they're a dog against a team, like a better team, where you know that like Russ is going to have to do some work and you kind of trust in him. But I get so nervous when somebody's driving on Seattle and you back them. You just know you just know they're going to go right down the field.
I mean, last week I had one TV on the Denver game, sweating that out, trying to get, because I had Denver plus 3.5. And the other game I'm sweating out because I had no faith in Seattle to cover the minus 2.5. And they're up by 17?
Yeah.
And, and I still am doubting them. And
Nick Mullins starts moving the ball.
Kittle,
yeah.
No Jimmy Garoppolo. I got Nick Mullins from Southern Miss throwing the ball. It's at the point of the season, we all know what these teams can and can't do. And Seattle has proven us they can't stop anyone on defense. So that's the sweat you have if you back Seattle.
There's another big game where Lamar didn't really play all that well in the Baltimore Steelers game. I mean, if you just look at the stats and the box score on paper, it did not add up at all. Baltimore just destroyed them in time of possession. They held the ball all the time. It was just a couple of key, costly moments where Pittsburgh's defense was able to step up with a big play. Now Baltimore's going to go on the road and play an Indy team that's getting healthier and that's kind of sneaky good under the radar. Indy is a 2.5-point home underdog here. Baltimore at Indy, the total in this one 46.
So, first of all, let me ask you this. I had this epiphany when I was on the Peloton this morning. Is Jonathan Taylor the second coming of Trent Richardson?
I mean,
this guy looks so slow.
Bad. And what's funny is, not only does he look bad, but everyone that you put in around him looks good. You throw in Wilkins,
obviously it's all on him.
Looks good. At the beginning of the year, it was Mack when he was in there was looking good. It's like everybody else behind this line and with these weapons, they all look good except for him.
And I hate it when I'm wrong. Because I pride myself in the work I do, putting in the study of watching these college kids, and I was so goddamn wrong on Jonathan Taylor. I mean, I thought this kid was going to thrive on this line, and he looks slow. He's not hitting the gap. He's not busting through arm tackles. He's basically Trent Richardson. It just is insane to me. In terms of the game, the things I learned from the Colts is as long as they have their two guys, DeForest Buckner and the other guy I'm spacing on his name,
Eric Leonard.
Yeah, as long as they have those two, that defense is the top in the league.
They're as good as anyone. They can play with anyone.
Because you can't check one of them. You can't double one of them. You have to be responsible for two. So as long as both of those two are going, I have full faith. And the Colts team we saw against the Lions, that's the team I kind of thought both you and I thought we're going to see at the beginning of the year. Ball control, running the ball, being able to get third and manageable, being able to convert, not making silly turnovers. This is the team both you and I thought we're going to see. And right now, it looks like a team that can win it all. In terms of the Ravens, basically it's simple. Everyone's playing A in the box, forcing Lamar to beat you, and Lamar can't make throws. That's basically it. They didn't do anything to improve themselves. You're telling me you're going to trust Willie Snead to get a first down? That's going to be your playmaking wide receiver, Willie Evans. They didn't do anything good to improve themselves this offseason. On the offensive side of the ball, defensive side, they're loaded. But offensively, you still have to be able to score points in this league. And I really have questions with them scoring points if Lamar needs to put a drive together. If I can get the Colts at 3.5 or 4, I'm sold.
Completely agree. 3, I'd be okay with even. 3.5, 4, absolutely I'm going to take. And I would even, especially if it floated up a little there, I would take a little money line action too on the Colts, so I think can win this game outright. We move along to Texans -7 at the Jags. Over under in this game is 50.5. And do we know who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Jags yet? Have they said if it was going to be Glennon or one of the other? We know it's not going to be Minshew.
It's the kid from Oregon State, the tall guy. What I'm spacing on his name. Tall guy, kid from Oregon.
Fulton. I'll look it up. Yeah, it was something. But that's. I mean, with Mitch. Yeah, with Minshew, who's feisty, they still weren't moving the ball a whole lot. I mean, I just can't really back either side in this game.
1 points a game. There's even with a backup quarterback playing, even a third string rookie first starter, there's no way I feel confident laying that many points with the Texans.
No, I can't really be on either side of this game. Texans minus the 7 on the road at the Jags, over under 50.5. I think you and I still have that bad Texans taste in our mouth from that Titans game, I think, from a few weeks ago too. So yeah, I would need a really great spot and a really great number to back the Texans in some of the coming weeks. What about Chiefs minus 11 against the Panthers?
CMC's back, and the Chiefs are vulnerable to the vertical passing game. And I will give Carolina credit. Their offense looks way more explosive than I thought it would. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, they're getting Curtis Samuel more involved. That's a big number to be laying with an offense that explosive, especially with the Chiefs defense will give up the vertical play. I want to see if I can get a better number with Carolina before I get invested in the Chiefs.
I would agree. I was starting to turn the corner on Carolina a little bit, and then they had a couple weeks in a row where they were okay against the Saints. And they ended up covering that game, and they just missed that late field goal that would have sent the game to overtime. But yeah, I'm still back and forth with them. Like I thought they were going to be awful at the beginning of the year. I think they're well coached. So this is sort of a no real strong opinion as I'll move along to Titans Bears. The Titans are a 5.5 to 6 point favorite at home. They're playing the Bears. Over under in this game is 46.5. The Bears come off of that game where Troy Aikman was just ripping them against the Saints. I mean, he was not liking what he was seeing from them out on the field. And then you have the Titans, who this was a game that you and I were both on. You were very high on this game for a while. You had it circled, the spot that they were going to be in playing the Bengals last week. And the Bengals, not only did they beat them up. We've not really been in love with this Tennessee team. And it's sort of for some of the reasons why I think we both aren't as high on Green Bay. This defense is awful.
I could beat their cornerbacks deep. That's how slow their outside cornerbacks are. They can't cover it all. And if you have anyone that can stretch the field, they're gonna have trouble. So if Nagy is half the offensive genius that the people here in Chicago give him credit for, he's gonna be stretching the field, going deep with Mounier and Robinson, attacking that secondary. I am worried about the Bears' offensive line and Nick Foles actually having the gusto to make that throw. It's like Foles is a little bit scared of turning the ball over, and he's not forcing it down the field as much as I want him to. But these two teams are insanely overrated in my eyes. They're both not as good as their record dictates. I could make a case that the Titans should only have one win on the year.
Oh, I've been against them a lot, and even last year I thought it was fluky the way things went for them. They played well, like Tannehill played really well, but they were on the right side of a lot of things. And I mean, in this spot, I would probably lean Bears just because they're two teams that I both think are phony, and I would just take the points.
Yeah, I mean that's the same way. I'm in the same mindset. I'm gonna see if I can maybe get a 6. I'll sprinkle a little bit on the money line, but. I mean, the Titans got 2 games against the Colts coming up, and let's face it, in Titan world, those games to win the South
that's everything.
Is way more important than this game against the Bears.
Those are everything. And it's as bad as we feel about the Bears too. I would almost always prefer a team like the Bears as far as playing like against better teams, because the Bears are going to keep you in the game most of the time with their defense, right? You're not going to score 40 against them a lot of the time. So they can keep themselves in the game where they only have to make a play or two. I think they can make plays on this Tennessee defense. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Especially with the kid from Tulane, Mounier, and Allen Robinson is one of the most underrated wide receivers.
This is a big Robinson game. It feels like in DFS too, right?
Titans, for sure. And the Titans offensive line, let's not forget, it's not as good as a Max should be able to get to Tannehill, and they should be able to contain if you can Derrick Henry. So I definitely lean the Bears too, but I'm just going to wait for the
better number.
Hopefully I can get a 6.5, and I'll definitely sprinkle on the money line.
The old NFC East. The old NFC East. When Washington is a 3-point favorite, you know that something is wrong, and they're a 3-point favorite over the New York Giants. Washington -3 against the Giants, over-under in this one, 41.5. I mean, when you look at these two teams, I think we can probably all agree that the Giants' defense is a little better than we thought it was going to be this year, and the Giants' defense has actually been pretty solid. It's kept them in a lot of games, and Washington has a pretty good defense, to be honest, a pretty solid defensive front. So really low total in here. I don't know. I can't really get excited to back either one of these teams at a number that feels pretty fair.
The best advice I ever got when I started doing this gambling full time is when two shitty teams play against each other, it's two shitty teams. So everyone sees two shitty teams playing. They expect this to be a high total. Well, there's a reason these teams suck. You know what I mean? Like, there's not going to be this offensive explosion. If the total can creep up over 4, I will look on 21 for the first half. I will the first half under. That's kind of where I'm at with this game. But there's no way that either one of these teams should be laying a 3.
And we get to Chargers Raiders. Hey, the Raiders were in that weird weather game, low scoring game last week against the Browns, and the Chargers laid another egg. I mean, Eric, when we talk about teams that could have a completely different record, how about the Chargers? That's them every year. This is you got a new quarterback who's played really well and who's overachieved, yet it's the same story with this team. They just every week, every game they play is decided by one possession. It always comes down to the last 30 seconds of a game. It's usually something controversial that involves the refs or some sort of weird something. And I mean, this game to me, it feels like it's going to be another game that's going to be close and come down to something funky. Chargers against the Raiders, over under 53.5. Do you like a side or a total here?
The one thing, my big take on this game is the Chargers are always going to play to the level of their competition. If they play the Chiefs, they're going to play up. If they play the Jaguars, they're going to play down. And that they've proven that this year. Anthony Lynn is on the hot seat. I like Anthony Lynn. I think he can be a successful coordinator, but he's kind of like they've shown build the culture of playing not to lose. And that's what they do on all these games. They play not to lose, and you can tell that with their play calling. But they're playing for his job this week. I've heard if Lynn doesn't win this week, he's out. So I expect this to be one of the Chargers' better efforts. Raiders have some injuries on the offensive line. Ingram and Bosa are both back rushing the quarterback. I saw the line at 1. I'm going to definitely be on the Chargers side. Hopefully it gets down to a pick just for Raider love, but I'm definitely going to be on the Chargers on the side.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're just like, I just think the Chargers are better. Honestly, like are better, and they find a way to lose games. But I will lean Chargers in here with you also as we move on to Arizona against the Dolphins. So last week I was on the Dolphin side. You were on the opposite side. We were on opposite sides, and I just thought for the Rams it was a bad spot with a lot of the travel on the short week and everything like that. And now I'm going the opposite. I'm going against the Dolphins this week. I'm going with Arizona, and I do not, like you, I almost never lay points. Almost never. And if it is, it's very short, or if it's a number that I feel like there's a lot of value in. So I got Arizona at 4.5, and I think the Dolphins are going to be feeling really great, high off of their win last week. Tua really didn't do anything. He didn't have to. The Dolphins defense that's getting better. This is a completely different quarterback than the quarterback they had to deal with last week, who's a statue and who was coming off a short week, and who I'm not as hard on Goff as some people are, but when he goes bad and he's having a bad game, his bad and his floor is horrible. I mean, he looks so bad out there when things are going poorly, and then the floodgates just open. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Kyler that way. I like the way I've seen Arizona. They seem. I think Edmonds is a better running back personally, and I like the fact that he's going to be getting the ball a lot. I don't think Miami's going to be able to stop Arizona here. I think they're going to go up and down on him.
What you just said about Goff, like Goff is that guy. If he had the attitude that Locke had, I mean, think about how good the Rams would be.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he had the same traits, but his mindset was just the same as Locke. That carefree, whatever attitude and that short-term memory. That's why mentally wise, like, I question Goff. But back to this game, how I spent my election Tuesday is I rewatched this game. I didn't watch any election stuff. I rewatched the Tua game because I'm not a big Tua guy like everybody else. The things that stuck out for me was Tua didn't look worse than I thought he did, and he only threw to the left side of the field. I think this Cardinals defense is insanely underrated and is going to feast on this weakened defensive line. And the Chargers have a good Vance Joseph, I believe, is their DC, who's one of the better ones in the league. And he's going to notice Tua is only looking at the left side of the field, and he's going to totally take that away. Woods had 7 for 85. Kupp had 11 for 110. Neither one of those guys is half the wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins is. Hopkins is going to eat on the secondary. I love Arizona. Arizona Cardinals DFS play. I mean, season-long play. This defense is a must-play in any fantasy football you have, and I'm definitely going to be laying the points with the Cardinals.
3 games left to discuss on the Week 9 slate. First up of those 3 is Pittsburgh at Dallas. Oh, Pittsburgh! How about this, Eric? Pittsburgh is a 14-point favorite on the road heading to Dallas. We have a Cowboys team that has not covered a point spread this year, playing against a Pittsburgh team that is undefeated. They have not lost a game this year. This is a lot of points on the road to be laying. Do we know if it's going to be Rush or DiNucci or who is even going to be starting for the Cowboys as of now?
What I read is it's either going to be Central Michigan's second best quarterback ever, Cooper Rush, or Gilbert. I think it's going to be Rush personally. As much as I hate to say this, this is the perfect spot to fade the Steelers.
I agree.
14 points. I mean, the one thing that the Giants showed us is 14 points, 13 points is way too much to be getting as a home at anything in the NFL. NFL games basically come down to one score games, and hardly a team is beaten by 14 or more. I mean, this is a huge spot to fade Pittsburgh. Cowboys offensive line is getting better. Rush does have some experience. What do you think of Zeke? I rewatched that game too. Zeke looks fat. I don't mean to be mean, but he looks fat and slow. I think the offense is more explosive when they got Pollard back there.
I mean, there's something to do, I wonder, with the COVID thing. Because remember, he had COVID too. Yeah. And I've been wondering, and Bill Simmons has mentioned this a couple times, and he talked about it with a few basketball players, and he's mentioned it with Cam Newton also. And it's something that I'm just monitoring because, again, Eric, this is something as a virus, a disease that we don't know a whole lot about. It could impact one guy differently. I'll tell you this much. He does not look like himself, period. Whether it be overweight, out of shape, he's just not hitting holes. And this isn't anything to do with, like, if you're telling me, oh, yeah, okay, the boxes are stacked. He's dropping balls. He's not confident. He got blown up on a block a couple of weeks ago that got pushed right back into Andy Dalton, where he just got lit up on that thing. I mean, he does not look like not only a top tier running back, he doesn't look like a starting confident running back in the NFL right now.
No, he doesn't look explosive at all. Like, maybe COVID is it. Like we've talked about, we really don't know how COVID's going to affect any one of these guys. So
yeah,
I just think more Pollard. Dallas does have weapons. They can just have a competent quarterback. This is going to be their 4th starting quarterback. And this is the typical spot where Pittsburgh just looks like, they have a big win off the Titans.
They've always done this. I mean, they lose games like this. They lose these games, not only don't cover. Yeah. Like, this is where one that the Tomlin Steelers have everybody's talking about them now. They just had 2. They beat undefeated team, and then they beat their big rival back-to-back weeks. 2 games where they were actually the underdogs in, I think, both times back-to-back. And now you're the huge favorite on the road. Everyone's telling you how great you are. This and that. There's no reason for them to cover this spread. I could see them winning this game by 7 or 10 easily in like a really kind of ugly, lazy game to watch. Honestly, I probably don't want to watch a whole lot of this game, but I hope Dallas can just give me a late cover because I'm going to play them plus 14 for sure.
Oh, Easily. And remember at the beginning of the season, they played the Texans. And, I mean, they were down at halftime in that game. This is just a complete flat spot for Pittsburgh written all over it.
2 games left. We got the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. Really good Sunday night game where we've got Tampa and the Tampa Bay Bucks coming off of that late victory, as you mentioned, where they were able to squeak one out against the team they were heavily favored over in the Giants on Monday night. They're going to be playing the Saints. Saints are the 5.5 point underdog on the road. Over-under in this game is 51.5.
These are 2 teams that I'm not high on. I know their records are good. I really feel that the Bucks losing, oh my God, I'm facing on the guy's name, Vera, the run stopper. I really feel that's going to hurt them starting Kamara. I mean, Wayne Gellman and the Giants were able to exploit their defense against the run on Monday night. Saints are going to be getting Thomas and Sanders back, and the DBs have proven that you can beat them up top. The only thing is Breeze going to be able to get the ball down there with his old arm. Saints offense, it's kind of been underwhelming the last 2 weeks, but that's been without Thomas and Sanders. Defense has been playing better. I think this game is going to be a little bit more low scoring. I'm definitely going to be looking at the Saints and the total under.
And the total right now is around 51.5 there. Yeah, no real strong opinion for me on this one. This will be a game that I'll be interested to watch because I'm not high on the Saints really at all. I don't like a lot of what's been going on there with them. I mean, they very easily could have lost that game last week. They were gifted the game against the Bears. You look at the way they won the game against the Chargers. That was a game that the Chargers lost. You look at the way the Saints-Panthers game was going. The Panthers were like inches away from a field goal, sending them to overtime. So again, we talk about teams that their record might not be who they are. I haven't watched like very much of the Saints this year and thought that they look great or they're doing really anything well besides getting the ball to Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, but when you have someone that explosive,
sure,
I mean, and it works. And I agree with everything you're saying. Also, they're down double digits to the too. I just feel that this Bucks team, like everyone's just drinking the Kool-Aid just way too much.
You're right.
Is a huge run stop for them. They're going to get AB back. Brady's great. He's the GOAT. I get it. I understand it. But egos are such a delicate thing to manage in sports. How is Mike Evans, Chris Godwin,
Gronk,
Matt Jones? How are those guys going to react to not getting the ball? I mean, you're bringing AB in. To me, it just screams take the Saints because you're getting 5 with 2 teams, and you see value on it.
We get to the Monday Night Football game. Patriots, Jets. How about this one? Between these 2 teams put together, Eric, there's only 2 wins. The Pats are 2-5. Yeah. The Jets are 0-8. It felt like last week was, I'm sure a lot of people felt like, okay, this is the spot the Pats are going to bounce back. And it looked like they were going to. And they were driving down the field. They were either going to kick a field goal to tie and go to overtime. And Cam was starting to move the ball. It seemed like they were starting to kind of figure things out. And then he turns the ball over. And I mean, it was just like a little microcosm of their season, the Patriots. And their defense isn't great. They're not doing a whole lot of things great. And now they're going to be a 7 to 7.5 point favorite on the road. Even though the Jets are bad, this is another case where you got a big road favorite that I don't really love or trust.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to play the number. I mean, I've played the Jets more than I like to admit it. I didn't play them last week, thank God, against the Chiefs. I finally got back. But funny is, I kind of had an epiphany when I was on my run. As much as everyone gives the Jets shit, a lot of teams kind of want to be in their position where they have a top pick, they have a young cornerback in Darin they can move to add pieces, and they're going to be starting over and hopefully get a young, exciting coach. So, I mean, long term, the position they're in isn't that bad. I mean, they have some good pieces. They got Beckton on the line who's good. They've drafted that kid from Cal, Davis, in the secondary. I like what they're building, but this year they've just been a complete train wreck. And It's just way too many points. I can't trust the Patriots as much as it hurts me to say that, especially after Newman had that last fumble that cost me the money line in Buffalo. I am definitely going to be at the Jets at anything 7 or higher.
Yep, absolutely. That's the key. Make sure you get the 7 at least, 7.5. Look around.
Or another thing I like to do in a game like this, I mean, the first half total, if you can get Jets +3 and the over under at 21.5, I mean, that's a great little parlay chip. Jets +3
Those are
under
great
21.5.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, when two bad teams play, the scoring is always low. There's never these big offensive explosions because everyone figures, oh, Team X is bad on defense, so Team Y is going to put up a lot of points. Well, Team Y's offense sucks. That doesn't correlate. You know what I mean? So I think this is going to be a little bit more of a low-scoring game. And there are so many overs to start the season. We're going to start to see that get corrected and unders start hitting more moving forward.
And I think they're still going to try to win this game moving forward.
Sure.
But the Patriots are going to start to get in a strange situation because if, Belichick, you could hear it in Belichick's voice after the game. He for the first time sort of feels a little defeated. I think he's looking around and going we just really don't have the personnel right now. And you wonder, is there going to be a point where they say maybe we don't, maybe we try to just finish towards the bottom of the pack and get a pick, and improve our draft status moving forward. They don't spend a lot of money, so they have to try to improve through the draft. So yeah, we'll see. It's insane to be talking about a New England Patriots team that's 2-5 and Tom Brady's down in Tampa. And it was the conversation before the year. Is it Belichick, Brady, and early? It's just 7-8 games into it, but so far you look around and I don't think the Patriots would be awesome with Tom Brady, but they probably would have won a couple more games.
Yeah, but in fairness, the playmakers in Tampa Bay.
It's just not even comparable. There is nothing in New England.
Explosive. So, yeah,
it is hard to compare. You're right.
They're running out. Yeah, Damian Bird, Jacoby Myers, who's a great fantasy pickup, BTW, because he's playing the Edelman role where the Patriots are actually forced to pass now. So he's getting all those targets plus the come from behind targets you get. So he's a great fantasy pickup. But yeah, they just don't have talent, which is really weird because everyone says they're such great talent evaluators. Honestly, on the offensive end, where is it?
I know. It's funny too. It's they try to play some kind of money. They try to do this money ball sort of thing, and it hasn't been working for them. They always try to get value or efficiency in their picks and trading down and getting more and stocking up. But you know what? Go get one of the best players sometime. Go draft a top tier wide receiver or a top tier running back instead of and give honestly, that's why Brady's not there.
Yeah, I really thought because they traded down in the first half. I mean, in the first round last year, I really thought they should took Jordan Love, got set up, or take an explosive playmaker.
There were so many receivers. There were so many receivers into the start of the second round that we liked a lot.
Jefferson and Swift.
Man, for the Colts,
Yeah, all those guys were on the board. You could have got somebody that would have been huge, just a piece. But, they traded down and drafted some no-name safety he's a D3 player. That was their first pick. It's just really weird what they're doing.
Yeah, they get a little too cute sometimes. So, and I think I'm sure a lot of people have a smile on their face seeing the Patriots struggle after them being on top for so many years. Week 9, it is just flying by. Erik, thank you so much for helping me, for doing this on short notice, for doing it a little early in the week. Give us some kind of your overall, any games that you've already jumped in and played on, or any games that you like and you're waiting maybe for a certain number.
I'm gonna see how the market reacts to the Stafford news, and I mean, I know I already got the 3. If I can get something a little juicier, 7 or higher, definitely be invested there. Already locked in the Broncos. Going to definitely be looking at Carolina. Hopefully that inflates up, and definitely the Chargers.
Erik E. Top 21 Sports. Give us your plugs again one more time. Where can we find you? Social media, Twitter, Instagram, and your podcast.
I'm at eTop21 Sports on Twitter, at eTop21 Sports _ on Instagram. I have a podcast where I just vent my crazy mind on sports that comes out Monday and Saturday.
Erik, thank you so much, buddy. I will have you back on in a couple of weeks. I can't go too long without talking to you because I always enjoy the conversations. It helps me. I learn a little from you too, and then we get a good idea of how we're going to set things up for the week. So thank you so much, buddy. Have a great weekend. Good luck.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for having me on.
That is Erik, ETOF 21 Sports. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back with much more here on That's What G Said. A big thank you to Erik for helping us out with the NFL this week. So a couple games that I'm looking at in the NFL for me. Titans, Bears. If we can get the +6, I'm taking the Bears side in there. The Pittsburgh Dallas game. Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Cowboys in the +14. I think this is kind of a trap spot for Pittsburgh to be a little bit flat. They can still win by 10 here and be flat and not cover the spread. I'll also look to the Jets. I want to get the +7.5 though. If we get 7, definitely not at 6.5, but look for the +7.5 there with the Jets. So Bears, Cowboys, Jets, the 3 for me. And then the best play of the weekend is going to be Arizona -4.5 against the Dolphins. Arizona -4.5 against the Dolphins. My 4 plays there, the best one, Arizona, and then the 3 other plays. Bears, try to find +6. Dallas, make sure you're getting +14. And Jets, look for the +7.5 there. NFL Week 9, we're finally coming off a good week. This year it's been, I think week 1 I was 2-5, and then every week since then has been either 2-1, 1-2, 2-1, one back and forth and back and forth. Finally had a nice 3-0 week, and we're up just at 500. So we'll get going now with much more of a focus coming in the next few weeks on the NFL with the Breeders' Cup in the rearview mirror, with Lakers and Dodgers stuff, and basketball and baseball in the rearview mirror for a while. Football, horse racing, going to get our undivided attention. Although, if my attention's already divided between football and horse racing, that's not undivided attention, right? Mainly, I'm just talking about my focus. See, starting to ramble at the end of this episode because we're done. I'm done. We are done for this weekend for Breeders' Cup. I have to really say thank you to everybody who joined me I'm finishing this up, and it is 3:21 a.m. Pacific time as I'm saying my last few words on the end of this show on Thursday morning. And from Monday to Wednesday, in those 3 days, I had interviews, 17 different interviews set up with people from Bree Mott to Stable Duel, Kurt Rossner from Old Smoke, Erik, who joined us to talk about NFL, and then a different guest for every single Breeders' Cup race. It started with the Friday Breeders' Cup races, and it went on to the Saturday Breeders' Cup races. And a big thank you to every single person along the way. It was Brian Aragoni at the very beginning. It was Ryan Dickey, Andy Villanueva, Sean Alvarez, and Barry Spears helping out on Friday. Then on Saturday, it was Scott Shapiro, Bill Downs. It was Joe Christofek, Andrew Champagne, and Darin Zoccali. Some of my go-tos, man. Those guys, they helped me with wrestling, with every single week, with all sorts of horse racing stuff. The big thanks to the boys there helping out again with double duty, because they did the Philly and Mare Turf and the Turf, helping me out. Craig Milkowski from Timeform US. Chris Larmey joined us to talk Breeders' Cup Mile. Craig talked about the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Christina Blacker from TVG was so nice catching up with Christina. She talked about the Distaff with us. And then Emily Gullikson closed it out talking Breeders' Cup Classic. Thank you to all of the guests. I mean, they were able to give me anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes to talk about a race, go through everything. They handicapped the races super early for me. They were really flexible with their time. I could not have put together all these shows without all the help from them. And thanks to all of you for listening in again. Don't forget to go subscribe, to rate, to review what you heard on That's What G Said. The analysis is going to always be this way. Most weeks we're not going to cover every race 25 to 30 minutes horse by horse like we did with the Breeders' Cup, but there will be a lot of deep dive days. Every episode is going to have some horse racing plays for you, but this is going to be always more than just a horse racing show. And many weeks it's going to be, lots of other sports, but whatever the big one is, that'll be our focus. And this week, the big one was the Breeders' Cup. Thanks again, folks. Let's make that money. If you have any questions about anything, please shoot me a message. Joey Cleveland, close this thing out because we're going to have a newly updated That's What G Said theme song coming soon.